Hello. I may or may not have fucked some settings. It's fine. Well done, Yudes, for grabbing first. Hello, Wolf. Hello, Godcat. Hello, Anika. Don't forget to grab your dailies. Hello, Samu. When did temp come as well? What do you mean by temp? I don't know what temp is. Like, what's temp? I'm playing with the gal. I saw. I got a little Steam notification thingy saying Wolf is playing Baldur's Gate 3, and I was like, is it the girl? It is the girl. Name is Leah. Am I saying it right, Leah, or is it Lee? Sometimes people have different pronunciations. Leah? I'm gonna guess Leah. He's playing with the gal, everyone. She's a cutie. Oh my fucking god, stop. I love it. I do want to know everything. Like, I want to know all the gossip. I love other people's love life. Obviously, mine's pretty set, you know? You guys can't hear it, but my bathroom keeps making weird noises. And my apartment has a tendency to flood sometimes. So I'm semi-concerned about this place flooding, just a touch. But it's probably fine. I'm hoping it's just making weird noises for shits and gigs. Ah! Today's reading stream, thought it was Stardew. Stardew's tomorrow. Today we have attempting to get you assholes to go to bed earlier. And I say assholes lovingly, obviously. This is what I call my friends. I call Jordan worse. You know? So it's like, no one get mad at me for calling him an asshole. Because I obviously don't actually think anyone's an asshole. It's too early to sleep though. I know. It's like 8 p.m. However, I'll be here until like midnight. And we have a bunch of people on different time zones. So for someone, it might be kind of late. And for other people, it might be a little bit too early to sleep. But we'll go for like 4 hours. So the hope is that eventually it'll be a good time for people to sleep. And what if it's 1 a.m. for them? Then that's an excellent time to go to bed. Do they still sleep or be awake? If it's 1 a.m. for you, you would logically go to bed, right? Right? My woman is slightly not centered and it bugs me. There we go. No, logically I have to stay awake. Wait for Holly's stream. Yeah, but Holly's stream is telling you to fall asleep. And perhaps put me on in the background if the reading helps you to fall asleep. Why am I dummed for this? For Yeats? Okay. Rude, but okay. It's Thursday though. Wait. We're calling Yeats dumb. I didn't realise this. I thought we were calling me dumb on behalf of Yeats. I was like, this still means that I'm dumb. What have I done? Apart from having hiccups. You're not allergic to EP. If people are here and it's 1 a.m. for them, then that means they need to sleep. I'm pretty sure it's like 8 p.m. for Yeats. So while it would probably be good for him to actually get some rest, I don't think he's gonna right now. Because I think it's kind of early for him. That might just be me though. Do you guys like our little library? I made it. myself. Do you like the library? Look, I like the library. I am glad. This is excellent. Very nice. Book. We have many books here today. I'm holding one kind of dodgily because, I don't have a book toggle, so we're making do. And we have many behind me. Lots of books. All the books. Book and voice make EP? Exactly! Book and voice make EP. Do not knock anyone out with a book, Alika. Alika does need a book. This is why I have many books behind me to make all of you EP. Alika has Minecraft. That's valid. I'll get a book and use a shield. You can't use my books as shields, guys. We are in the fucking library of the order. This is a cool and sacred place. Okay? We need to be nice to the order. Pillow fight the books. I could probably find you guys some pillows if you wanted to. Okay? But like, don't throw my books. The cat is asking me questions, so I won't be able to present in chat. That is a-okay, Wolf. You answer the girly pop's questions. Enjoy. We'll go with YouTube. Okay, enjoy. Before you go, can you put the Discord message in, please? Because I cannot. I have currently yeeted my keyboard away from me, so I have more desk space. Thank you. And can you make sure it doesn't die after 20 minutes? Please. I guess I could do that actually. Oh my gosh. We don't need her message about the throne and the drawing tablet. We really, like, it. The drawing tablet. Thank you very much for the follow, Jennifer. Very nice. We will let the viewers know. I know, but like the message comes up in chat fairly often. I know he overruled your pin. My apologies, Alika. Podcast, is that not the same? I'm pretty sure it is the same. What's up? How's it going? Welcome in. Ready for some reading extravaganza? I can't tell if it's the same message or not. God, Cat and Yeats. I don't know. Either way, it's fine. And the message about Throne comes up in chat every like 30 minutes or so if people are talking. So, there's that. We mention the tablet when we do the redeems. As long as they know to join the order, I am happy. This is the ideal. I will start with the reading now. Last time, we got up to... I left for a sec, so I don't know if you answered when did temp come, because it definitely wasn't for me shouting you out this time. I don't know, temp? Who's temp? I'm so confused. Oh, Tempest Draconium? Tempest appeared 3 days ago. I believe they followed while I was off stream. Do you know Tempest? Because you were like, oh, when did Temp get here? And I was like, I don't know who Temp is. Oh shit. What's oh shit? What are we oh shitting? Should I be concerned? She's one of the Oh! You should have told me. Now I need to go give her a follow back. Hold on. Hold on. Okay. I'm learning the Godcat stream family. This is fun. We love it. I've barely seen the throw being mentioned by the bot. I've seen it a few times, I think. I feel like it's definitely happened. My brain. It works, guys. Ah, you remember when I said that I'm getting an animated emote? Fucking loading is one of the animated emotes I'm getting. Thanks for lurking, Wolf. I'm allowed to watch a bit of drama. Okay. Enjoy your lurkutes. I will start the reading. Hee hee ha ha. So, I think it's because I told about everyone's link in the fam docs. That's probably why. There's a fam document? You have a document of your family? I guess I'm on the fucking document. Hee hee ha ha. I want to see the document. I want to follow the rest of the family. If I'm an aunt, I'd have to be someone's sister. If I'm an aunt, I'd have to be your mother's sister. Wait. Yes, if I'm an aunt, I'd have to be your mother's sister. So I need to see who my other sister is. This is important, you know? I gotta drop my sis a follow. Lurk in a few streams. Also, look, guys. It's in my description. Okay, I will find it. Yeah, I forgot, but I wanted to talk more about the background. Yeah, because I made it, and isn't it pretty? And it's fucking leafy, and like wow. And these are real tree trunks and junk of the French act. There's a French act. Is there a French account? Also, thanks. Thanks, Godcat. Imagine a follow for follow in this speech. Why? I don't know. I was about to be like, I don't know why they always come at the beginning of stream, but it's because I just posted on fucking Twitter being like, I'm reading again. Ah. Got it. Okay. I will go stalk people. After stream. We've already been chatting shit for 20 minutes. Insane work from me. But what I wanted to fucking mention is that I've got like a little floaty effect in the background, which I obviously didn't make. So the credits for that are linked in the credits section, but I think it's so cute that there's like a little floaty background thing. I think it adds to the vibe. Okay. So we finished up on page 103 last time. For people that haven't got the full story, we're reading Inkheart, essentially. VOD 1 Part 1 is up on YouTube now, so if people do want to go back and listen to the first 100 pages, it's there. If anyone fell asleep during it, or if people want to use it to go to bed, it's there now. You can find my YouTube by literally just searching Wizard Cat Hole, and I will be there. Or you can go to the card link in like my bio-ish section. And there's a button for YouTube in there. So that's up if anyone wants to see the first part. So far, what has happened is We've been introduced to Maggie and Mo. Those are our two main characters. And we've seen Dustfinger and the aunt, and now the bad bitches, the bad people, have taken Mo off. And Maggie and everyone else are attempting to go and get Mo back. This is what's happened so far, pretty much. And there's been a lot of books. Let's jump back in. As always, we will take breaks when ads rock up. And yeah, let me know if anyone needs anything. Otherwise, I will start the reading. Enjoy your luck, Godcat. Okay. Dustfinger did not steal into Maggie's room until he was quite sure she was asleep. She had locked her door. Undoubtedly, Eleanor had persuaded her to do that because she didn't trust him and because Maggie had refused to give Inkheart back to her. Dustfinger couldn't help smiling as he inserted the thin wire into the lock. What a stupid woman she was, in spite of all those books she'd read. Did she really think such an ordinary lock was an obstacle? Well, perhaps it might be for fat fingers like yours, Eleanor, he whispered to himself as he opened the door. But my fingers play with fire, and it's made them quick and skillful. His liking for Silvertongue's daughter was a more serious obstacle, and his guilty conscience didn't make matters any easier. Yes, Dustfinger did have a guilty conscience as he crept into Maggie's room, although he hadn't come to steal the book. Naturally, Capricorn still wanted it, the book and Silvertongue's daughter too. Those were his new orders. But that must wait. Tonight, Dustfinger was there for a different reason. Tonight, something that had been gnawing at his heart for years drove him to Maggie's room. He stood thoughtfully beside the bed, looking at the sleeping girl. Betraying her father to Capricorn had not been particularly difficult, but with her it would be different. Her face reminded Dustfinger of another one, although no grief had yet left dark shadows on Maggie's childish features. Strange. Every time the girl looked at him, he felt a wish to show her that he didn't deserve the distrust he always saw in her eyes, even when she was smiling at him. She looked at her father in a very different way, as if he could protect her from all the dark and evil in the world. What a stupid, stupid idea. No one would be able to protect her from that. Dustfinger stroked the scars on his face and frowned. Enough of such useless thoughts. He would take Capricorn what he wanted. The girl in the book, but not tonight. Gwyn moved on his shoulder, trying to wriggle out of his collar, which he liked as little as he liked the dog's leash Dustfinger always carried with him. He wanted to go hunting, but Dustfinger wasn't letting him out. Last night the marten had run away from him while he was talking to Basta. The furry little devil was still afraid of Basta, and Dustfinger couldn't blame him. Maggie was sleeping soundly, her face buried in a grey sweater, probably her father's. She murmured something in her sleep, but Dustfinger couldn't make out what. Once again his guilty conscience stirred, but he pushed the tiresome feeling away. He couldn't do with that kind of thing. Not now and not later. The girl was nothing to do with him, and he was quits with her father now. Yes, quits. He had no reason to feel like a miserable, double-dealing villain. He looked round the dark room, in search of something. Where would Maggie put the box? There was a red box beside her bed. Dustfinger lifted the lid. Gwyn's chain clinked softly as he leaned forward. The box was full of books, wonderful books. Dustfinger took out the torch from under his coat and shone it on them. Look at that, he murmured. What beauties, like a party of ladies dressed in their best to go to a prince's ball. Silvertongue had probably rebound them after Maggie's little fingers had worn out the old bindings. Yes, of course, there was his sign, the unicorn's head. Each book bore it, and each was bound in a different colour. All the hues of the rainbow were gathered together in that box. The book Dustfinger was looking for was right at the bottom. With its silvery green binding, it looked plain, a poor thing among the other grand and lordly volumes. It didn't surprise Dustfinger that Silvertongue had given this book such a plain dress to wear. Very likely Maggie's father hated it as much as he loved it. Dustfinger carefully extracted it from the other books. It was almost 9 years since he last had it in his hands. At the time, it had still had a cardboard binding and a torn paper dust jacket. Dustfinger raised his head. Maggie sighed and moved until her sleeping face was turned his way. How unhappy she looked. She must be having a nightmare. Her lips quivered, and her hands clutched the sweater as if she were looking for something, or someone to give her security. But you are usually alone in nightmares, dreadfully alone. Dustfinger remembered many of his own bad dreams, and, for a moment, he was tempted to put out his hand and wake Maggie. What a soft-hearted fool he was. He turned his back to the bed, out of sight, out of mind. Then he opened the book hastily before he could think better of it. He was breathing heavy, as if he had filled his mouth with liquid in preparation for breathing fire. He leafed through the first few pages and began to read, slowly turning page after page after page. But with every page his fingers hesitated a little longer, until suddenly he closed the book. Moonlight was seeping through the cracks in the shutters. He had no idea how long he had been standing there, his eyes lost in the labyrinth of letters. He'd always been a very slow reader. "Coward," he whispered. "Oh, what a coward you are, Dustfinger." He bit his lips until they hurt. "Come on," he told himself. "This may be your last chance, you fool. Once Capricorn has the book, I'll never let you look at it again." Once more he opened the book, leafed rapidly through to about the middle, and closed it again, with a sound loud enough to make Maggie give a little start in her sleep and bury her head under the covers. Dustfinger waited motionless beside the bed until she was breathing regularly again, then leaned over her treasure chest with a deep sigh and put the book back under the others. Soundlessly he closed the lid. "Did you see that, Gwyn?" he whispered to the Martin. "I just dare not look. Wouldn't you rather find a braver master? Think it over." Gwyn chattered softly in his ear, but if that was an answer, Dustfinger didn't understand it. For a moment he went on listening to Maggie's quiet breathing, then strolled back to the door. "Well, what does it matter?" he muttered when he was out in the corridor. "Who wants to know the end of a story in advance?" He climbed up to the attic bedroom Eleanor had given him and lay down on the narrow bed with the crates of books towering around it, but he could not sleep until morning came. We're taking a quick drink while we can, and then we will go on to chapter 12. Going further south. After breakfast next morning, Eleanor spread a crumpled road map out on the kitchen table. "Right, 300 kilometers south of here," she said with a wary glance at Dustfinger. "So show us exactly where we have to look for Maggie's father." Maggie looked at Dustfinger, her heart thudding. There were dark shadows round his eyes, as if he had slept very badly. Hesitantly he came over to the table, rubbing his stubbly chin. He bent over the map, scrutinized it for what seemed an eternity, and finally pointed with his finger. "There," he said. "Capricorn's village is just there." Eleanor looked over his shoulder. "Liguria," she said. "Aha! And what is the name of this village, if I may ask?" "Capricornia." She was examining Dustfinger's face as if tracing his scars with her eyes. "It doesn't have a name," Dustfinger responded to her gaze with unconcealed dislike. "I expected to have one once, but the name was already forgotten before Capricorn settled there. You won't find it on this map or any other either. To the rest of the world, the village is just a collection of tumble-down houses reached along what could hardly be called a road." Eleanor bent closer to the map. "I've never been in that region. I was in Genoa once. I bought a very fine edition of Alice in Wonderland there, in good condition and for half what it was worth." She looked inquiringly at Maggie. "Do you like Alice in Wonderland?" "Not particularly," said Maggie, staring at the map. Eleanor shook her head at such childish folly and turned back to Dustfinger. "What does this Capricorn do when he's not stealing books and abducting people's fathers?" she asked. "If I understand Maggie correctly, you know him pretty well." Dustfinger avoided her eyes and ran his finger along a blue river, winding its way through the green and pale brown of the map. We come from the same place, he said, but apart from that, we don't have much in common. Eleanor looked at him so penetratingly that Maggie would not have been surprised to see a hole suddenly appear in his forehead. There's one thing that strikes me as strange, she said. Maggie's father wanted to keep Inkheart safe from this Capricorn, so why bring the book here to me? He was practically running into Capricorn's arms. Dustfinger shrugged his shoulders. Well, perhaps he just thought your library would be the safest hiding place. A memory stirred in Maggie's mind. At first she couldn't identify it, but then it all came flooding back to her, perfectly clear, as vivid as a picture in a book. She saw Dustfinger standing beside their camp fan at the gate of the farmhouse, and it was almost as if she heard his voice again. Why am I yawning? This is the point, Utes. The point is to get you to sleep. It's good that you're yawning. She looked at him in horror. You told me that Capricorn was in the north, she said. He specially asked, and you said you were sure of it. Dustfinger examined his fingernails. Well, yes. Yes, that's right, he admitted, without looking at Maggie or Eleanor. He just went on staring at his nails. Finally, he rubbed them on his sweater as if to remove an ugly mark. You don't trust me, he said hoarsely, still without looking at them. Neither of you trust me. I can understand that, but I wasn't lying. Capricorn has 2 main headquarters and several smaller hideouts in case things get too hot for him, or one of his men needs to disappear for a while. Not supposed to be yawning, though. You are technically supposed to be yawning. That's the point of me reading. For people to go to bed. It's working. This is good. He usually spends the summer months in the north and doesn't come south until October, but this year he's obviously spending the summer down in the south. How would I know why? Perhaps he had trouble with the police in the north. Perhaps he has business of some kind in the south and wants to see to it personally. His voice sounded injured, like the voice of a child unjustly accused. In any case, his men drove south with Maggie's father. I saw them go myself, and when Capricorn is in the south, he always does anything of importance in that village. He feels safe in it, safer than anywhere else. He's never had any trouble with the police there. He can act like a king, as if the whole world belonged to him. He makes the laws, he decides what happens, he can do or not do anything he likes. His men take care of that. Believe you me, I understand these things. Dustfinger smiled. It was a bitter smile. It seemed to be saying, if only you knew. But you don't know anything. You don't understand anything. Maggie felt unease spread through her again. It was not caused by what Dustfinger said, but by what he wasn't saying. Ooh. It looks like the message about the Discord has gone away. Can someone put it back up, please? I'm gonna keep reading. Nothing is more frightening than a fear you cannot name. Eleanor seemed to be feeling the same. For heaven's sake, don't make such a mystery of it, she snapped. I'm asking you again, what does this Capricorn do? How does he earn his money? Dustfinger crossed his arms. You won't get any more information out of me. Ask him yourself. Oh. It looks like we are 1 minute and 30 seconds away from an ad. I'm going to run one now and also put the Discord message back up, and then we will get back to reading. My keyboard is quite literally bent in a very odd way, which isn't ideal, but we'll make it work. Oops. There we go. I think it didn't get pinned because of this fun little thing it does, where sometimes it doesn't pin things correctly, like you'll pin it the same way you would anything. And then what happens is it decides to do it where it will only pin for like 20 minutes, even if you set it to manually unpin after stream. It's not ideal, honestly, but hey ho. 38 seconds left on the ad for those of you who can still hear me. I'm gonna check on this Discord message just in case. Okay. Looks fine. But we'll see if it decides to disappear again. Alrighty. We are free of ads. I'm going back to reading. Dustfinger crossed his arms. You ain't got any more information out of me. Ask him yourself. Even taking you to his village could cost me dear, so am I going to tell you about Capricorn's business? Not likely. He shook his head. I warned Maggie's father. I advised him to take Capricorn the book of his own free will, but he wouldn't listen. If I hadn't warned him, Capricorn's men would have found him much sooner. Ask Maggie. She was there when I warned him, right? I didn't tell him everything I knew. So what? I talk about Capricorn as little as possible. I try not even to think of him. And you take my word for it, once you know him, you'll feel the same. Eleanor wrinkled her nose as if such an idea were too ridiculous for her to waste a single word on it. So I assume you can't tell me why he's so keen to get hold of this book? She asked, folding up the roadmap. Is he some kind of collector? Dustfinger ran his finger along the edge of the table. All I'm going to tell you is that he wants this book, and that's why you better give it to him. I once knew his men to stand outside a man's house for 4 nights running just because Capricorn took a fancy to the man's dog. Did he get the dog? Asked Maggie quietly. Of course, replied Dustfinger, looking at her thoughtfully. Believe me, no one sleeps soundly with Capricorn's men standing outside the door looking up at their window, or their children's window. Capricorn usually gets what he wants within a couple of days, maximum. Disgusting, said Eleanor. You wouldn't have got my dog. Dustfinger examined his fingernails again, smiling. Stop grinning like that, snapped Eleanor, and turning to Maggie, she added, You'd better pack a few things. We set off within the hour. It's about time you got your father back. Even if I don't like having to leave the book with this Capra what's-his-name, I hate to see books fall into the wrong hands. They were going in Eleanor's estate car, although Dustfinger would have preferred to travel in Moe's camper van. Nonsense. I'd never driven anything like that, said Eleanor, dumping in Dustfinger's arms a cardboard box full of provisions for the journey. Anyway, Mortimer's locked the van. Maggie saw that Dustfinger had an answer on the tip of his tongue, but chose to keep it to himself. Suppose we have to spend the night somewhere, he asked, carrying the box over to Eleanor's car. Heavens above, who said anything about that? I intend to be back here tomorrow morning at the latest. I hate leaving my books on their own for more than a day. Dustfinger rolled his eyes up at the sky, as if more sense might be expected there than in Eleanor's head, and began clambering into the back seat, but Eleanor stopped him. No, wait, you'd better drive, she said, handing him her car keys. You're the one who knows where we're going. But Dustfinger gave her back the keys. I can't drive, he said. It's bad enough sitting in a car, never mind driving it. Eleanor got behind the steering wheel, shaking her head. Well, you're an oddity and no mistake, she said, as Maggie climbed into the passenger seat beside her. And I hope you really do know where Maggie's father is. You'll find out that this Capricorn of yours isn't the only person to be frightened of around here. Maggie wound down her window as Eleanor started the engine. She looked back at Moe's van. It felt bad leaving it behind here, worse than leaving a house, even this one. Love this story. Gotta go make myself some coffee with sugar. Also, gonna play a couch game and listen to the story. Okay, no worries. You just have fun. Strange as a place might be, the camp van meant that Mo and she always had a bit of home with them. Now that was gone too, and nothing was familiar anymore except the clothes in her travelling bag in the foot of the estate car. She had also packed a few things for Mo, and 2 of her books. Interesting choice, Eleanor had commented when she lent Maggie a bag for the books, an old-fashioned one made of dark leather that you could sling over your shoulder. These stories about the ill-made knight and people with hairy feet going on a long journey to dark places. Have you read them both? Maggie had nodded. Lots of times. She smiled at Eleanor's descriptions, stroking the bindings before she put the books in the bag. She could remember every detail of the day when Mo had rebound them. Oh dear, don't look so dismal, Eleanor had said, looking at her with concern. You just wait, our journey isn't going to be half as bad as those hairy-footed people's quest. It'll be much shorter too. Maggie would have been glad to feel as sure of that herself. The book that was the reason for their own journey was in the boot, under the spare tire. Eleanor had put it in a plastic bag. Don't let Dustfinger see where it is, she urged Maggie before putting it into her hands. I still don't trust him. But Maggie had decided to trust Dustfinger. She wanted to trust him. She needed to trust him. Who else could lead her to Mo? Capricorn's Village, Chapter 13. The sun was already high in the cloudless sky when they set off. Soon the air was so hot and muggy in Eleanor's car that Maggie's t-shirt was sticking to her skin with sweat. Eleanor opened her window and passed a bottle of water round. She herself was wearing a knitted jacket buttoned up to her chin, and when Maggie wasn't thinking of Mo or Capricorn, she wondered whether Eleanor might make the way inside it. Dustfinger sat on the back seat, so silent that you could almost have forgotten he was there. He had put Gwyn on his lap. The marten slept while Dustfinger's hands restlessly stroked his fur, passing over it again and again. Now and then Maggie turned to look at him. He was usually gazing out of the window indifferently, as if he were looking straight through the mountains and trees, houses and rocky slopes passing by outside. His expression seemed perfectly empty, as if he were thinking of something far away, and once, when Maggie glanced round, there was such sadness on his scarred face that she quickly turned to look out of the windscreen ahead of her. She would have liked to have an animal on her own lap during this long, long journey. Perhaps it would have driven away the dark thoughts that insisted on coming into her mind. Outside, the world was a place of gently unfolding mountains, rising higher and higher. Sometimes it seemed as if they would crush the road between their grey and rocky sides. But worse than the mountains were the tunnels. Pictures seemed to lurk in them that not even Gwyn's warm body could have kept at bay. They seemed to be hiding there in the darkness, waiting for Maggie. Pictures of Mo in some dark, cold place, and of Capricorn. Maggie knew it must be Capricorn, although his face was different every time. Hello, Dolan. Welcome in. I hope you're doing well. She tried reading for a while, but soon noticed that she wasn't taking in a word of what she read. So she gave it up and stared out of the window like Dustfinger. Eleanor chose minor roads without much traffic on them. Otherwise the driving gets so boring, she said. It made no difference to Maggie. She just wanted to arrive. She looked impatiently at the mountains and the houses where other people lived. Sometimes through the window of a car coming the other way she caught a glimpse of a stranger's face. And then it was gone, like a book you open and close at once. When they were driving through one village, she saw a man by the roadside sticking a plaster on the grazed knee of a tearful little girl. Big W's. Hold on, I'm going to cough real fast. He was stroking her hair comfortingly. Maggie couldn't help remembering how often Mo had done that for her. How he sometimes chased all round the house, cursing when he couldn't find a plaster in time. The memory brought tears to her eyes. Heavens above, it's quieter in here than in a pharaoh's burial chamber, said Eleanor at some point. Maggie thought she said heavens above rather a lot. Couldn't one of you at least say something now and then? Oh, a lovely landscape, for instance. Or that's a very fine castle. If you keep as deathly quiet as this, I'll be falling asleep at the wheel any minute now. She still hadn't undone a single button of her knitted jacket. I don't see any castle, muttered Maggie, but it wasn't long before Eleanor spotted one. 16th century, she announced, as the ruined walls appeared on a mountainside. Tragic story, forbidden love, pursued death, grief and pain. And as they passed between the strong and silent rock walls, Eleanor told the tale of a battle that had raged in this place over 600 years ago. To this day, if you dig among the stones, you'll still find bones and dented helmets. She seemed to know a story about every church tower. Some were so unlikely that Maggie wrinkled her brow in disbelief. And Eleanor, without taking her eyes off the road, always responded, "No, really, that's just what happened." She seemed to be particularly fond of bloodthirsty stories, tales of the beheading of unhappy lovers, or princes walled up alive. "Yes, everything looks very peaceful now," she remarked when Maggie turned a little pale at one of the stories. "I can tell you there's always a sad story somewhere." Ah, well, times were more exciting a few hundred years ago. Maggie didn't know what was so exciting about times when, if Eleanor was to be believed, the only choice was between dying of the plague or getting slaughtered by invading soldiers. But Eleanor's cheeks glowed pink with excitement at the sight of some burnt-out old castle, and whenever she told tales of the warrior princes and the greedy bishops who had once spread terror and death abroad in the very mountains through which they themselves were now driving on modern paved roads, a romantic gleam lit her usually chilly pebble eyes. "My dear Eleanor, you are obviously born into the wrong story," said Dustfinger at last. These were the first words he had spoken since they set out. "The wrong story? The wrong period, you mean? Yes, I've often thought so myself." "Call it what you like," said Dustfinger. "Anyway, you should get on well with Capricorn. He likes the same kinds of stories as you." "Is that supposed to be an insult?" asked Eleanor. "Thanks for the daily, Dolan," asked Eleanor, offended. The comparison seemed to trouble her, for after that she kept quiet for almost an hour, which left Maggie with nothing to distract her from her miserable thoughts and the frightening pictures they conjured up for her in every tunnel. Twilight was beginning to fall when the mountains drew back from the road and the sea suddenly appeared beyond green hills, a sea as wide as another sky. The sinking sun made it glisten like... Good night, Dolan. The sinking sun made it glisten like the skin of a beautiful snake. It was a long time since Maggie had seen the sea, and then it had been a cold sea, slate grey and pale from the wind. This sea looked different, very different. It warmed Maggie's heart just to see it, but all too often it disappeared behind the tall, ugly buildings covering the narrow strip of land that lay between the water and the encroaching hills. Sometimes the hills reached all the way down to the sea, and in the light of the setting sun, they looked as if they were giant waves that had rolled up onto the land. As they followed the winding coastal road, Eleanor began telling stories again. Tales of the Romans who, she said, had built the road they were on, and how they feared the savage inhabitants of this narrow strip of land. Maggie was only half listening. Palm trees grew beside the road, their fronds dusty and sharp-edged. Giant agaves flowered among the palms, looking like spiders squatting there with their long, spiny leaves. The light behind them turned pink and lemon yellow as the sun sank further down towards the sea, and dark blue trickled down from the sky like ink flowing into water. It was so beautiful a sight that it almost hurt to look at it. Maggie had thought the place where Capricorn lived would be quite different. Beauty and fear make uneasy companions. They drove through a small town, past houses as bright as if a child had painted them. They were colour-washed orange and pink, red and yellow. A great many were yellow. Pale yellow, brownish yellow, sandy yellow, dirty yellow, and they had green shutters and red-brown roofs. Even the gathering twilight couldn't drain them of their brightness. "It doesn't seem so very dangerous here," remarked Maggie as they drove past another pink house. "That's because you keep looking to your left," said Dustfinger behind her. "But there's always a light side and a dark side. Look to your right for a change." Maggie did as he said. At first she saw nothing but the brightly coloured houses there too. They crowded close to the roadside, leaning against each other as if they were arm in arm. But then the houses were suddenly left behind, and steep hills with the night already settling among their folds lined the road and said, yes, Dustfinger was right. It looked sinister over there, and the few houses left seemed to be drowning in the gathering dusk. It quickly grew darker, for night falls fast in the south, and Mickey was glad that Eleanor was driving along the well-lit coastal road. But all too soon Dustfinger told her to turn off along a minor road leading away from the coast, away from the sea and the brightly coloured houses, and into the dark. The road wound further and further into the hills, going up and down as the slopes by the roadside grew steeper and steeper. The light of the headlamps fell on gorse, on vines run wild, and olive trees crouching like bent old men beside the road. Only twice did they meet another vehicle coming towards them. Now and then the lights of a village emerged from the darkness, but the roads along which Dustfinger guided Eleanor led away from the lights and deeper into the night. Several times the beam of their headlights fell on ruined houses, but Eleanor didn't know any stories about any of them. No princes had lived in those wretched hovels, no red-robed bishops, only farmers and labourers whose stories no one had written down, and now they were lost, buried under wild thyme and fast-growing gorse. "Are we still going the right way?" asked Eleanor in a muted voice, as if the world around her were too quiet for anyone to speak out loud. "Where on earth do we find a village in this god-forsaken wilderness? We've probably taken at least 2 wrong turnings already." But Dustfinger only shook his head. "We're going the right way," he replied. "Once we're over that hill, you'll be able to see the houses." "I certainly hope so," muttered Eleanor. "I could hardly make out the road, heavens above. I had no idea anywhere in the world was still so dark. Couldn't you have told me what a long way it was? Then I'd have filled up the tank again. I don't even know if we have enough fuel to make it back to the coast." "So whose car is this?" Dustfinger snapped back. "Mine. I told you I don't know the first thing about cars. Now keep your eyes on the road. We'll be coming to the bridge any moment." Bridge? Eleanor drove round the next bend and suddenly stamped on the brake. Right across the road, lit by 2 builder's lamps, was a metal barrier. It looked rusty, as if it stood there for years. "There," said Eleanor, clapping her hands on the steering wheel. "We have gone the wrong way. I told you so." "No, we haven't." Dustfinger took Gwyn off his shoulder and got out of the car. He looked around, listening intently as he approached the barrier, then dragged it over to the side of the road. Eleanor's look of disbelief almost made Maggie laugh out loud. "Has the man gone right out of his mind?" she whispered. "He doesn't think I'm going to drive down a closed road in this darkness, does he?" All the same, she started the engine when Dustfinger impatiently waved her on. As soon as she was past him, he pulled the barrier back across the road. "No need to look at me like that," he said, climbing back into the car. "The barrier's always there. Capricorn had it put up to keep unwanted visitors away. Not that people often venture up here. Capricorn spreads stories about the village that keep most of them at a distance, but—" "What sort of stories?" Maggie interrupted him, although she didn't really think that she wanted to know. "Blood-curdling stories," said Dustfinger. "Like most folk, the locals round here are superstitious. The most common tale is that the devil himself lives on the far side of that hill." Maggie was cross with herself for being scared, but now she just couldn't take her eyes off the dark hilltop. "Mo says human beings invented the devil," she said. "Well, maybe." Dustfinger's mysterious smile was hovering round his mouth again. "But you wanted to know about the stories. They say no bullet can kill the men who live in that village. They can walk through walls. They kidnap 3 boys every month when the moon is new. and Capricorn teaches them to commit theft, arson, and murder. Good heavens, who thought all that up? The folk of these parts, or this man Capricorn himself? Eleanor was leaning right over the steering wheel. The road was full of potholes, and she had to drive very slowly so as not to get stuck. Both. Dustfinger leaned back and let Gwyn nibble his fingers. Capricorn rewards people who think up new stories. The one man who never joins in that game is Baster. He's so superstitious himself he even goes out of his way to avoid black cats. Baster. Maggie remembered the name, but before she could ask any more questions, Dustfinger was speaking again. He seemed to enjoy telling these tales. Oh yes, I almost forgot. Of course, everyone living in the village of the damned has the evil eye. Even the women. The evil eye? Maggie looked at him. That's right, one glance and you fall mortally ill. 3 days after that, at the latest, and you're dead as a doornail. You'd believe a thing like that, murmured Maggie, turning to look ahead of her again. Idiots would. Eleanor stamped on the brake again. The car skidded over gravel on the road. The bridge Dustfinger had mentioned lay ahead, its grey stone pale in the headlights. Go on, said Dustfinger impatiently. It'll hold, though you might not think so. It looks as if the ancient Romans built it, muttered Eleanor, but for donkeys, not cars. All the same, Eleanor drove on. Maggie squeezed her eyes tight shut and didn't open them until she could hear the gravel under the car tires once more. Capricorn likes this bridge a lot, said Dustfinger quietly. A single well-armed man is enough to make it impassable, but luckily he doesn't post a guard here every night. Dustfinger? Maggie turned hesitantly to look at him as Eleanor's car laboured up the last hill. What are we going to say when they ask us how we found the village? I mean, it's not going to be a good idea for Capricorn to know that you showed us the way, is it? No, you're right, muttered Dustfinger, avoiding Maggie's eyes, although we are bringing him the book. He picked up Gwyn, who was clambering around the back seat, held him so that she couldn't snap, and then lured him into the rucksack with a piece of bread. The Marten had been restless ever since darkness fell. He wanted to go hunting. They had reached the top of the hill. The world around them had disappeared from view, swallowed up by the night. But not far away, a few pale rectangles glowed in the dark, lighted windows. There it is, said Dustfinger. Capricorn's village, or the Devil's village if you prefer. He laughed softly. Eleanor turned to him crossly. For heaven's sake, will you stop that? She snapped at him. You really seem to like these stories. You know, perhaps they're all your own invention, and this Capricorn is just a rather eccentric book collector. Dustfinger made no reply, but only looked out of the window with a strange smile that Maggie sometimes wanted to wipe off his face. Yet again it seemed to be staying. How stupid you two are. Eleanor had switched off the engine. The silence surrounding them was so absolute that Maggie hardly dared to breathe. She looked down at the lighted windows. Usually she thought brightly lit windows were an inviting sight in the dark, but these seemed far more menacing than the darkness all round. Does this village have any normal inhabitants? Asked Eleanor. Harmless old grannies, children, people who don't have anything to do with Capricorn? No, nobody lives there but Capricorn and his men, whispered Dustfinger, and the women who cook and clean and so on for them. And so on, oh wonderful! Eleanor snorted with distaste. I like the sound of this Capricorn less and less. Right, let's get this over and done with. I want to go home to my books, proper electric light, and a nice cup of coffee. Really? I thought you were longing for a little adventure. If Gwyn could speak, thought Maggie, he'd do so in Dustfinger's voice. I prefer adventures in the sunlight, replied Eleanor curtly. Heavens, how I hate this darkness. Still, if we sit around here until dawn, my books will be mildewed before Mortimer can do anything about them. Maggie, go round to the back of the car and fetch that bag. You know the one. Maggie nodded, and was just about to open the passenger door when a glaring light blinded her. Someone whose face she couldn't make out was standing beside the driver's door, shining a torch into the car. He tapped it commandingly against the pane. Eleanor jumped in such alarm she hit her knee on the steering wheel, but she quickly pulled herself together. Cursing, she rubbed her hurt leg and opened the window. "What's the idea?" she snapped at the stranger. "Do you have to frighten us to death? A person could easily get run over skulking about in the dark like that." By way of answer, the stranger pushed the barrel of a shotgun through the open window. "This is private property," he said. Maggie thought she recognized the rasping cat's tongue voice from Eleanor's library. A person can very easily get shot trespassing on private property at night. "I can explain." Dustfinger leaned over Eleanor's shoulder. "Well, well, who have we here if it isn't Dustfinger?" The man withdrew the barrel of his shotgun. "Do you have to turn up in the middle of the night?" Eleanor turned and cast Dustfinger a glance that was more than suspicious. "I'd no idea you were on such friendly terms with these people," she commented. "You called them devils." But Dustfinger was already out of the car, and Maggie didn't like the familiar way the two men were talking. She remembered exactly what Dustfinger had said to her about Capricorn's men. How could he talk to one of them like this? However hard Maggie strained her ears, she couldn't make out what the pair were saying. She caught only one thing. Dustfinger called the stranger Basta. "I don't like this," whispered Eleanor. "Look at the pair of them. They're talking to each other as if our matchstick-eating friend can come and go here as he likes." "He probably knows they won't hurt him because we're bringing them the book," Maggie whispered back, never taking her eyes off the two men. The stranger had a couple of dogs with him, German shepherds. They were sniffing Dustfinger's hands and nuzzling him in the ribs, wagging their tails. "See that?" hissed Eleanor. "Even those dogs treat him as an old friend. Suppose—" But before she could say any more, Basta opened the driver's door. "Get out, both of you," he ordered. Reluctantly, Eleanor swung her legs out of the car. Maggie got out too and stood beside her. Her heart was thudding. She had never seen a man with a gun before. Well, on TV she had, but not in real life. "Look, I don't like your tone," Eleanor informed Basta. "We've had a strenuous drive, and we only came to this godforsaken spot to bring your boss, or whatever you call him, something he's been wanting for a long time. So let's have a little more civility." Buster cast her such a scornful glance that Eleanor drew in a sharp breath, and Maggie involuntarily squeezed her hand. "Where did you pick her up?" inquired Basta, turning back to Dustfinger, who was standing there looking as unmoved as if none of this had anything to do with him at all. "She owns that house. You know the one I mean." Dustfinger had lowered his voice, but Maggie heard him all the same. He didn't want to bring her, but she insisted. "I can imagine that." Basta scrutinized Eleanor once again, then turned to Maggie. "So this is Silvertongue's little daughter. Doesn't look much like him." "Where's my father?" asked Maggie. "How is he?" These were the first words she had managed to utter. Her voice was hoarse, as if she hadn't used it for a long time. "Oh, he's fine," replied Basta, glancing at Dustfinger, although he's saying so little at the moment that Leadenton would be more like it. Maggie bit her lip. "We've come for him," she said. Now her voice was high and thin, although she was trying as hard as she could to sound grown up. "We have the book, but we won't give it to Capricorn unless he lets my father go." Basta turned to Dustfinger again. "Something about her does remind me of her father after all. See her lips tighten? And that look? Oh yes, anyone can see they're related." His voice sounded as if he were joking, but there was nothing funny about his face when he looked at Maggie again. It was thin, sharply angular, with close-set eyes. He narrowed them slightly as if he could see better that way. Basta was not a tall man, and his shoulders were almost as narrow as a boy's. But Maggie held her breath when he took a step towards her. She was afraid of him. She had never been so afraid of anyone before, and it wasn't because of the shotgun in his hand. He had an aura of fury about him, something keen and biting. "Maggie, get the book out of the boot." As Basta was about to grab Maggie, Eleanor pushed herself between them. "There's nothing dangerous in it," she said crossly. "Just what we came here to hand over." By way of answer, Basta pulled the dogs aside, pulling so harshly on their leashes that they yelped out loud. "Maggie, listen to me. whispered Eleanor as they left the car and followed Basta down a steep pathway leading to the lighted windows. Don't hand over the book until they let us see your father. Understand? Maggie nodded, clutching the plastic bag firmly to her chest. How stupid did Eleanor think she was? On the other hand, how was she going to hang on to the book if Basta decided to take it away from her? She preferred not to follow this line of thinking through to its conclusion. It was a hot, sultry night. The sky above the black hills was sprinkled with stars. The path down which Basta was leading was stony, and so dark that Maggie could hardly see her own feet. But whenever she stumbled, there was a hand to catch her. The hand belonged either to Eleanor walking beside her or to Dustfinger, who was following as silently as if he were her shadow. Wynne was still in his rucksack, and Basta's dogs kept raising their noses and sniffing as if they had picked up the sharp scent of the marten. Slowly they came closer to the lighted windows. Maggie saw old houses of grey, rough-hewn stone, with a pale church tower rising above the rooftops. Many of the houses looked empty as they passed, going down alleys so narrow that Maggie felt they could close in on her. Some of the houses had no roofs. Others were little more than a couple of walls partly fallen in. It was dark in Capricorn's village. Only a few lamps were on in the streets, hanging from masonry arches above the alleyways. At last they reached a small square. The church with the tower they had seen from a distance stood on one side of the square, and not far away, divided from it by a narrow passage, there was a large two-story house which did not look at all derelict. This square was better lit than the rest of the village, with 4 lanterns casting menacing shadows on the paving stones. Basta led them straight to the big house, where more light showed behind 3 windows on the upper floor. Was Mo in there? Maggie listened to herself as if she could find the answer there, but all her heart would tell her was a tale of fear and grief. We've got an ad coming up, a new chapter to start, so I will run the ad now for those of us who are not subbed, and then we will get back to it afterwards. And I will take a quick liquid break. I am hydrating, I swear. This is what I'm doing when the ads run. I just chug a drink next to me. It's basically all I do when the ads run. I was sweating while doing an event on a catching game. Why were you sweating about this? Huh? You've got 30 seconds left on the ad. There's this event collab with Fate Stay Night on Honkai Star Rail. The event has you to participate in a Holy Grail war. I mean, this sounds kind of funky, no? It sounds cool. Corruption level 5 was annoyingly tough. That is not ideal. But, you know, good things come to those who work hard for them. So technically this is the important thing. I'm full of hiccups today for some reason. 20 jades equals primos. Very nice. For 20 jade. This is good. We love free polls, after all. Free stuff. Okay. Our ad has finished for the time being. So we will go back to doing the reading. We are at chapter 14, A Mission Accomplished. Hundreds of times since Dustfinger had first told her about him, Maggie had tried to picture Capricorn's face. She'd thought about it on the way to Eleanor's house when Mo was sitting beside her in the van, and in the huge bed there, and finally on the drive here. Hundreds of times? No, she had tried to imagine it thousands of times, drawing on her ideas of all the villains she had ever read about in books. Captain Hook, Crook Nose and Finn, Long John Silver, a full smile always on his lips. Injun Joe had haunted so many of her bad dreams with his knife and his greasy black hair. But Capricorn looked quite different. Maggie soon gave up counting the doors they passed before Basta finally stopped outside one. But she did count the black-clad men. 4 of them were standing in the corridors looking bored. Each man had a shotgun propped against the whitewashed wall beside him. Dustfinger had been right. In their close-fitting black suits, they really did look like rooks. Only Basta wore a snow-white shirt, just as Dustfinger had said, with a red flower in the buttonhole of his jacket, a red flower like a warning. Capricorn's dressing gown was red too. He was seated in an armchair when Basta entered the room with the 3 new arrivals, and a woman was kneeling in front of him, cutting his toenails. The chair seemed too small for him. Capricorn was a tall man, and gaunt, as if the skin had been stretched too tight over his bones. His skin was pale as parchment, his hair cut short and bristly. Maggie couldn't have said if it was grey or very fair. He raised his head when Basta opened the door. His eyes were almost as pale as the rest of him, as if the colour had drained out of them, but bright as silver coins. The woman at his feet glanced up when they came in, and bent over to resume her work. "Excuse me, but the visitors we were expecting have arrived," said Basta. "I thought you might want to speak to them at once." Capricorn leaned back in his chair and cast a brief glance at Dustfinger. Then his expressionless eyes moved to Maggie. She was clutching the plastic bag containing the book to her chest, her arms firmly wrapped around it. Capricorn stared at the bag as if he knew what was in it. He made a sign to the woman at his feet. Reluctantly, she straightened up, smoothed down her black dress, and glared at Eleanor and Maggie. She looked like an old magpie, with her grey hair scraped back and a pointed nose that didn't seem to fit her small, wrinkled face. Nodding to Capricorn, she left the room. It was a large room, only sparsely furnished. A long table with 8 chairs, a cupboard, and a heavy sideboard. There were no lamps in the room, only candles, dozens of them in heavy silver candlesticks. It seemed to Maggie that they filled the room with shadows rather than light. "Where is it?" asked Capricorn. When he scraped back his chair, Maggie flinched involuntarily. "Don't tell me you've only brought the girl this time." His voice was more impressive than his face. It was dark and heavy, and the moment she heard him speak, Maggie hated it. "She's got it with her, in that bag," replied Dustfinger before Maggie could say so herself. His eyes wandered restlessly from candle to candle as he spoke, as if only their dancing flames interested him. "Her father really didn't know he had the wrong book. This woman who says she's a friend of his," added Dustfinger, pointing to Eleanor, "changed the books round without telling him. She's a real bookworm. I think she lives on print. The whole house is full of books. Looks as if she likes them better than human company." The words came spilling out of Dustfinger's mouth as if he wanted to be rid of them. "I didn't like her from the first, but you know our friend Silvertongue? He always thinks the best of everyone. He'd trust the devil himself if old Nick gave him a friendly smile." Maggie looked at Eleanor. She was standing there as if tongue-tied. Anyone could see she had a guilty conscience. Capricorn merely nodded at Dustfinger's explanations. He tightened the belt of his dressing gown, clasped his hands behind his back, and came slowly over to Maggie. She did her best not to flinch, to look firmly and undaunted into those colourless eyes, but fear constricted her throat. What a coward she was after all. She tried to think of some hero out of one of her books, someone whose skin she could slip into to make her feel stronger, bigger, braver. Why could she remember nothing but stories of frightened people when Capricorn looked at her? She usually found it so easy to escape somewhere else, to get right inside the minds of people and animals who only existed on paper. So why not now? Because she was afraid. Because fear kills everything, Mo had once told her. Your mind, your heart, your imagination. Mo, where was he? Maggie bit her lip to stop herself shaking, but she knew the fear showed in her eyes, and she knew that Capricorn saw it. She wished she had a heart of ice and a clever smile, not the trembling lips of a child whose father had been stolen away. Now Capricorn was very close to her. He scrutinized her. No one had ever looked at her like that. She felt like a fly stuck to a flypaper just waiting to die. How old is she? Capricorn looked at Dustfinger as if he didn't trust Maggie to know the answer herself. 12, she said in a loud voice. It wasn't easy to speak with her lips quivering so hard. I'm 12, and I want to know who my father is. Capricorn had acted as if he hadn't heard the last sentence. 12, he repeated in the dark voice that weighed so heavily on Maggie's ears. 3 or 4 more years, and she'll be a pretty little thing. Useful to have around the place. We'll have to feed her up a bit, though. He felt her arm with his long fingers. He wore gold rings on them, 3 on each hand. Maggie tried to pull away, but Capricorn was gripping her tightly as his pale eyes examined her, just as he might have looked at a fish, a poor little fish wriggling on a hook. Let the girl go! For the first time, Maggie was glad Eleanor's voice could sound so sharp, and Capricorn actually did let go of her arm. Eleanor stepped up behind Maggie and put her hands protectively on her shoulders. I don't know what's going on here, she snapped at Capricorn. I don't know who you are, or what you and all these men with guns are doing in this god-forsaken village, and I don't want to know either. I'm here to see that this girl gets her father back. We'll leave you the book you're so keen to have, although that's enough to give me a heartache, but you'll get it as soon as Maggie's father is safe in my car. And if for any reason he wants to stay here, we'd like to hear it from his own lips. Capricorn turned his back to her without a word. Why did you bring this woman? He asked Dustfinger. Bring the girl in the book, I said. Why would I want the woman? Maggie looked at Dustfinger. The girl in the book. The words kept repeating inside her head like an echo. The girl in the book, I said. Maggie tried to look Dustfinger in the eye, but he avoided her gaze as if it would burn him. It hurt to feel so stupid. So terribly, terribly stupid. Dustfinger perched on the edge of the table and pinched out one of the candles, gently and slowly as if waiting for the pain, the sharp little stab of the candle flame. I've told Baxter already. Our dear friend Eleanor couldn't be persuaded to stay behind, he said. She didn't want to let the girl go with me alone, and she was very reluctant to give up the book. And wasn't I right? Eleanor's voice rose to such a pitch that Maggie jumped. Listen to him, Maggie. Listen to that fork-tongued matchstick eater. I ought to have called the police when he turned up again. He came back for the book. That was the only reason. And for me, thought Maggie, the girl in the book. Dustfinger pretended to be preoccupied with pulling a loose thread from his coat sleeve, but his hands, usually so skillful, were shaking. And as for you, said Eleanor, jabbing Capricorn in the chest with her forefinger. Baxter took a step forward, but Capricorn waved him away. I've had a lot of experience with books. I myself have had a number of books stolen from me, and I can't claim that all the books on my shelves got there exactly as they should have done. Perhaps you know the saying that all book collectors are vultures and hunters. But you really seem to be the craziest of us all. I'm surprised I've never heard of you before. Where's your collection? She looked inquiringly around the big room. I don't see a single book. Capricorn put his hands in his dressing gown pockets and signed to Baxter. Before May knew what was happening, Bastard snatched the plastic bag from her hands. He opened it, peered inside suspiciously as if he thought it could contain a snake or something else that might bite, then reached in and brought out the book. Capricorn took it from him. Maggie couldn't see on his face any of the tenderness with which Eleanor and Mo looked at books. No, there was nothing but dislike on Capricorn's face. Dislike and relief, that was all. These two know nothing? Capricorn opened the book, leafed through it, then closed it again. It was the right book. Maggie could tell from his face. It was exactly the book he had been looking for. No, they know nothing. Even the girl doesn't know. Dustfinger was looking out of the window very intently, as if there were more to be seen there than the pitch dark. Her father hasn't told her, so why should I? Capricorn nodded. Take these two round behind the house, he told Basta, who was still standing there holding the empty bag. What do you mean? Eleanor began, but Basta was already hauling her and Maggie away. It means we're going to shut you two pretty birds in one of our cages overnight, said Basta, prodding them roughly in the back with his shotgun. Where's my father? Shouted Maggie. Her own voice was shrill in her ears. You've got the book now. What more do you want of him? Capricorn strolled over to the candle that Dustfinger had pinched out, passed his forefinger over the wick and looked at the soot on his fingertip. What do I want of your father? He said, without turning to look at Maggie. I want to keep him here. What else? You don't seem to know about his extraordinary talent. Up to now, he's been unwilling to use it in my service, hard as Basta has tried to persuade him. But now Dustfinger has brought you here, he'll do anything I want. I'm confident of that. Maggie tried to push Basta's hands away when he reached for her, but he took her by the back of the head like a chicken whose neck he was about to wring. Eleanor tried coming to her aid, but he casually pointed the shotgun at her chest and forced Maggie over to the door. When Maggie turned around again, she saw Dustfinger still leaning against the big table. He was watching her, but this time he wasn't smiling. Forgive me, his eyes seemed to say. I had to do it. I can explain everything. But Maggie didn't want to know, and she certainly wasn't about to forgive him. I hope you drop dead, she screamed as Basta hauled her out of the room. I hope you burn to death. I hope you suffocate in your own smoke. Basta laughed as he closed the door. Just listen to this little wildcat, he said. I think I'll have to watch my step with you around. Chapter 15. Good luck and bad luck. The cages, as Basta had called them, kept ready by Capricorn for unwelcome guests, were behind the church, in a paved area where rubbish containers stood next to mountains of building rubble. There was a slight smell of petrol in the air, and even the glowworms, whirling aimlessly through the night, didn't seem to know what had brought them to this place. A row of tumble-down houses stood behind the bins and the rubble. The windows were just holes in the grey walls, and a couple of rotten shutters hung from their hinges at such an angle they looked as if a sudden gust of wind would blow them right off. Only the doors on the ground floor had obviously been given a fresh coat of paint fairly recently, in a dull brown shade with numbers painted on them clumsily, as if by a child, one for each door. As far as Maggie could see in the dark, the last door had a number 7 on it. Basta propelled her and Eleanor towards number 4. For a moment, Maggie was relieved that he hadn't really meant a cage, although the door and the blank wall looked anything but inviting. This is ridiculous, said Eleanor furiously, as Basta unlocked and unbolted the door. He had brought reinforcements with him from the house in the form of a skinny lad who wore the same black uniform as the grown men in Capricorn's village, and who obviously liked to menace Eleanor by pointing his gun at her whenever she opened her mouth. But that didn't keep her quiet for long. What do you think you're playing at? She said angrily, without taking her eyes off the muzzle of the gun. I've heard that these mountains were always a paradise for robbers, but for heaven's sake, we're living in the 21st century. These days, people don't go pushing visitors around at gunpoint. Certainly not a youngster like him. As far as I'm aware, people in this fine century of yours still do exactly as they always did, replied Basta. And that youngster is just the right age to be apprenticed to us. I was even younger when I joined. He pushed the door open. The darkness inside was blacker than night itself. Buster shoved first Maggie, then Eleanor in, and slammed the door behind them. Maggie heard the key turn in the lock, then Buster saying something which made the boy laugh, and the sound of their footsteps retreating. She reached her hands out until her fingertips touched a wall. Her eyes were useless. She might as well have been blind. She couldn't even see where Eleanor was, but she heard her muttering, letting off steam somewhere over to her left. Isn't there at least a bloody light switch somewhere in this hole? Oh, to hell with it. I feel as if I've fallen into some far-fetched adventure story where the villains wear black eye patches and throw knives. Damn, damn, damn. Maggie had already noticed that Eleanor swore a lot, and the more upset she was, the worse her language became. Eleanor? The voice came from somewhere in the darkness, and that one word expressed delight, horror, and surprise. Maggie spun round so suddenly she almost fell over her own feet. Mo? Oh no, Maggie, not you too. How did you get here? Mo! Maggie stumbled through the darkness towards Mo's voice. A hand took her arm and fingers felt her face. Ah, at last! A naked electric light bulb hanging from the ceiling came on, and Eleanor, looking pleased with herself, took her finger off a dusty switch. Electric light is a wonderful invention, she said. That at least is an improvement on past centuries, don't you agree? What are you two doing here, Eleanor? Demanded Mo, holding Maggie very close. I trusted you to look after her at least as well as your books. How could you let them bring her here? How could I let them? Eleanor's indignant voice almost cracked. I never asked to babysit your daughter. I know how to look after books, but children are something else, damn it. And she was worried about you, wanted to go looking for you, so what does stupid Eleanor do instead of staying comfortable at home? I mean, I couldn't let the child go off on her own, I told myself. And what do I get for my noble conduct? Insults, a gun held to my chest, and now I'm here in this hole with you carrying on at me too. All right, all right. Mo held Maggie at arm's length and looked her up and down. I'm fine, Mo, said Maggie, though her voice shook just a little. Honestly. Mo nodded and glanced at Eleanor. You bought Capricorn the book? Of course, you'd have given it to him yourself if I hadn't, said Eleanor, going red and looking down at her dusty shoes. If you hadn't swapped them round. Maggie ended her sentence for her. She reached for Mo's hand and held it very tightly. She couldn't believe he was back with her, apparently perfectly all right except for the scratch on his forehead, almost hidden by his dark hair. Did they hit you? She felt the dried blood anxiously with her forefinger. Mo had to smile, although he couldn't have been feeling much like it. That's nothing, I'm fine too, don't worry. Maggie didn't think that was really much of an answer, but she asked no more questions. So how did you come here? Asked Mo. Did Capricorn send his men back again? Eleanor shook her head. No need for that, she said bitterly. Your slimy-tongued friend fixed it. A nice kind of snake you brought to my house, I must say. First he gives you away, then he serves up the book and your daughter to this man Capricorn. Bring the girl in the book. We heard Capricorn say so himself. That was a little matchstick eater's mission, and he carried it out to his master's complete satisfaction. Maggie put Mo's arm round her shoulders and buried her face against him. The girl in the book. Mo held Maggie close again. Of course, now Capricorn can be sure I'll do what he wants. He turned round and went over to the pile of straw lying on the floor in a corner of the room. Sighing, he sat down on it, leaned his back against the wall, and closed his eyes for a moment. Well, now we're quits, Dustfinger and I, he said, although I wonder how Capricorn is going to pay him for his treachery, because what Dustfinger wants is something Capricorn can't give him. Quits? What do you mean? Maggie sat down beside him. What are you supposed to do for Capricorn? What does he want you for, Mo? The straw was damp, not a good place to sleep, but still better than the bare stone floor. Mo said nothing for what seemed an eternity. He stared at the bare walls, the locked door, the dirty floor. I think it's time I told you the whole story, he said at last. Although I'd rather not have to tell you in a grim place like this, and not until you're a little older. No, I'm 12. Why do grown-ups think it's easier for children to bear secrets than the truth? Don't they know about the horror stories we imagine to explain the secrets? Sit down, Eleanor, said Mo, making the space. It's quite a long story. Eleanor sighed and sat down unceremoniously on the damp straw. "This can't be happening," she murmured. "This really can't be happening." "That's what I thought for 9 years, Eleanor," said Mo. And then he began his story. I'm going to take a quick hydration break, and then we will get back to chapter 16. Okay, lost tracking for a second. Love that. Alrighty. Chapter 16. Once Upon a Time. "You were just 3 years old, Maggie," Mo began. "I remember how we celebrated your birthday. We gave you a picture book. You know, the one about the sea serpent with toothache winding itself round the lighthouse." Maggie nodded. It was still in her book box. Mo had twice given it a new dress. "Me?" she asked. "Your mother and I." Mo picked some straw off his trousers. "I could never pass by a bookshop. The house where we lived was very small. We called it our shoebox, our mouse hole. We had all sorts of names for it. And that very day I bought yet another crate full of books from a second-hand bookseller." Eleanor would have liked some of them, he added, glancing at her and smiling. Capricorn's book was there too. "You mean it belonged to him?" Maggie looked at Mo in surprise, but he shook his head. "No, but... Well, let's take it all in order. Your mother sighed when she saw all those new books and asked where we were going to put them. But then, of course, she helped me to unpack the crate. I always used to read aloud to her in the evenings." "You? You read aloud?" "Yes, every evening. Your mother enjoyed it. That evening she chose Inkheart. She always did like tales of adventure, stories full of brightness and darkness. She could tell you the names of all King Arthur's knights, and she knew everything about Beowulf and Grendel, the ancient gods and the not quite so ancient heroes. She liked pirate stories too, but most of all she loved books which had at least a knight or a dragon or a fairy in them. She was always on the dragon's side, by the way. There didn't seem to be any of them in Inkheart, but there was any amount of brightness and darkness, fairies and brownies. Your mother liked brownies as well. Hobgoblins, bugaboos, Finaudery, the Philesi with their butterfly wings, she knew them all. So we gave you a pile of picture books, sat down on the rug beside you, and I began to read." Maggie leaned her head against Mo's shoulder and stared at the blank wall. She saw herself against its dirty white background as she had looked in old photos. Small, with plump legs, very fair hair. It had darkened a little since then. Her little fingers turning the pages of big picture books. "We enjoyed the story," her father went on. "It was exciting, well written, and full of all sorts of amazing creatures. Your mother loved a book to lead her into an unknown land, and the world into which Inkheart led her was exactly what she liked. Sometimes the story took a very dark turn, and whenever the suspense got too much, your mother put a finger to her lips, and I read more quietly, although we were sure you were too busy with your own books to listen to a sinister story, which you wouldn't have understood anyway. I remember as if it were yesterday. Night had fallen long ago. It was autumn, with draughts coming in through the windows. We had lit a fire. There was no central heating in our shoebox of a house, but it had a stove in every room, and I began reading the 7th chapter. That's when it happened." Mo stopped. He stared ahead of him as if he had lost his own thoughts. "What?" whispered Maggie. "What happened, Mo?" Her father looked at her. "They came out," he said. There they were all of a sudden, standing in the doorway to the corridor outside the room, as if they'd just come in from out of doors. There was a crackling noise when they turned to us, like someone slowly unfolding a piece of paper. I still had their names on my lips. Basta, Dustfinger, Capricorn. Basta was holding Dustfinger by the collar, as if he was shaking a puppy for doing something forbidden. Capricorn liked to wear red even then, but he was 9 years younger and not quite as gaunt as he is today. He wore a sword, something I'd never seen at close quarters before. Basta had one hanging from his belt too, while Dustfinger... Here Mo shook his head. Well, of course, the poor fellow had nothing but the horned marten whose tricks earned him a living. I don't think any of the three of them would realize what had happened. Indeed, I didn't understand it myself until much later. My voice had brought them slipping out of their story like a bookmark forgotten by some reader between the pages. How could they understand what had happened? Basta pushed Dustfinger away so roughly that he fell down. Then he tried to draw his sword, but his hands were white as paper, and they obviously didn't yet have the strength for it. The sword slipped from his fingers and fell on the rug. Its blade looked as if there were dried blood on it, but perhaps it was only the reflection of the fire. Capricorn stood there looking round. He seemed dizzy. He was staggering on the spot like a dancing bear that has been made to turn round too often. And that may well have saved us, or so Dustfinger has always claimed. If Basta and his master had been in full command of their powers, they'd probably have killed us outright. But they hadn't fully arrived in this world yet, and I picked up the terrible sword lying on the rug among my books. It was heavy, much heavier than I'd expected. I must have looked absolutely ridiculous holding the thing. I probably clutched it like a vacuum cleaner or a walking stick. But when Capricorn staggered towards me and I held the blade between us, he stopped. I staggered. I stammered something, tried to explain what had happened. Not that I understood it myself. But Capricorn just stared at me with those pale eyes, the colour of water, while Basta stood beside him with a hand on the hilt of his dagger. He seemed to be waiting for his master to tell him to cut all of our throats. What about Dustfinger? Eleanor's voice sounded hoarse too. He was still where he'd fallen on the rug, sitting there as if paralysed, not making a sound. I didn't stop to think about Dustfinger. If you open a basket and see two snakes and a lizard crawl out, you're going to deal with the snakes first, right? What about my mother? Maggie could only whisper. She wasn't used to saying that word. Ray looked at her. I couldn't see her anywhere. You were still kneeling among your books, staring wide-eyed at the strange men standing there with their heavy boots and their weapons. I was terrified for you, but to my relief both Basta and Capricorn ignored you. That's enough talk, Capricorn said finally, as I became more and more entangled in my own words. Never mind how we arrived in this miserable place, just send us back at once, you accursed magician, or Basta here will cut the talkative tongue out of your mouth. Which didn't sound exactly reassuring, and I'd read enough about those two in the first chapters of the book to know that Capricorn meant what he said. I was wondering so desperately how to end the nightmare that I felt quite dizzy. I picked up the book. Perhaps if I read the same passage again, I thought. I tried. I stumbled over the words while Capricorn glared at me and Basta drew the knife from his belt. Nothing happened. The two of them just stood there in my house, showing no sign of going back into their own story. And suddenly I knew for certain that they meant to kill us. I put down the fatal book and picked up the sword I'd dropped on the rug. Basta tried to get to it before me, but I moved faster. I had to hold the wretched thing with both hands. I still remember how cold the hilt felt. Don't ask me how I did it, but I managed to drive Basta and Capricorn out into the passage. There were several breakages because I was brandishing the sword so clumsily. You began to cry, and I wanted to turn round and tell you it was all just a bad dream, but I was fully occupied keeping Basta's knife away from me with Capricorn's sword. So it's happened, I kept thinking. You're in the middle of a story exactly as you've always wanted, and it's horrible. Fear tastes quite different when you're not just reading about it, Maggie. And playing hero wasn't half as much fun as I'd expected. The two of them would certainly have killed me if they hadn't still been rather weak at the knees. Capricorn cursed me, his eyes almost bursting out of his head with fury. Basta swore and threatened, giving me a nasty cut on my upper arm. But then suddenly the front door was thrown open, and they both disappeared into the night, still reeling like drunks. My hands were trembling so much I could scarcely manage to bolt the door. I leaned against it and listened for sounds outside, but all I heard was my own heart racing. Then I heard you crying in the living room and remembered that there had been a third man. I staggered back, still holding the sword, and there stood Dustfinger in the middle of the room. He had no weapon, just the marten sitting on his shoulders. He flinched, face white as a sheet, when I came towards him. I must have been a terrible sight, with the blood running down my arm, and I was shaking all over. Whether from fear or anger, I couldn't have said. Please, he kept whispering. Don't kill me, I've nothing to do with those two. I'm only a juggler, just a harmless fire eater, I can show you. And I said, yes, yes, all right, I know you are, you're Dustfinger. I even know your name, you see. At which point he cowered and all before me. Magician, he thought, who seemed to know all about him. He had plucked him out of his world as easily as picking an apple off a tree. The Martin scampered along his arm, jumped down on the carpet and ran towards you. We have another ad coming up, so I'm going to pre-roll it now, and then when the ad is over, we will go back to reading this page, okay? Okay. Keep track, don't worry. But I don't want people to miss anything, so we'll do the ad, and then we'll be back to reading. Okay. For those of you who can still hear me, the ad is currently in progress. Hydrate, yes, I will hydrate, don't worry, youths. I am doing it now, I swear. Okay? You don't have to redeem it, I was doing it anyway. But thank you, I will hydrate. Gotta make sure. You really don't. I can feel that my voice is like maybe less than happy with this much talking, but you know, we continue to go through it. We're about 150 pages in now. So we're actually making much better time than last go. Yes. Hopefully we'll get to 200 today. And maybe we'll go a little bit further than that as well if the time allows it. How many pages are there in total? There's about 500 and something, 530. We've got 9 seconds left on the ad now, so I'll just drink a little bit more and then we'll get back to it. Aunt Wiz, I have you at 100% and I can barely hear you somehow. Ah. To be fair, I am talking quieter than usual because I'm trying to make sure that people don't wake up if they have managed to fall asleep. I'm speaking fairly close to the microphone though, if that helps. I did change some settings around the other day and now I'm wondering if I shouldn't have done that. To me, 100% Holly is pretty loud. Oh, okay. Maybe it's a case of turning up your headphones, God cat. Anyway, we will get back to the book. Almost passed out if it wasn't for cousin yelling because she died. Try modding as ever. It's fun to see that the reading is working if people are almost falling asleep though. This is the whole plan. As always, gentle reminder if anyone does want to actually listen to the story, the VOD is already on YouTube, so you can watch the first part of Inkheart, and if you fall asleep during this one, I'll put the second part up as well. And yes, hopefully we will have fun here. Hee haha. I'm currently eating Cheez-Its while listening and playing, so I'm having fun. Excellent. We will keep going. We're still in the same chapter we were on previously, but we had to stop because we only had a minute until the ads were going to roll on their own, and I wanted to forewarn people that it was coming. So, let us begin again. You stopped crying and put out your hand. Careful he bites, said Dustfinger, shooing him away from you. I took no notice. I suddenly realised how quiet the room was, that was all. How quiet and how empty. I saw the book lying open on the carpet where I had dropped it, and I saw the cushion where your mother had been sitting. She wasn't there. Where was she? I called her name again and again. I ran from room to room, but she had gone. Eleanor was sitting bolt upright, staring at him in horror. For heaven's sake, Mortimer, what are you saying? She cried. You told me she went away on some stupid adventure holiday and never came back. Mo leaned his head against the wall. I had to think up something, Eleanor, he said. I mean, I could hardly tell the truth, could I? Maggie stroked his arm where his shirt hid the long, pale scar. You always told me you'd cut your arm climbing through a broken window. Yes, I know. The truth would have sounded too crazy, don't you think? Maggie nodded. He was right. She would just have thought it was another one of his stories. So she never came back? She whispered, although she knew the answer already. No, replied Mo softly. Vesta, Capricorn, and Dustfinger came out of the book and she went into it, along with our two cats who were curled up on her lap as usual while I read aloud. I expect some creature from here changed places with Gwyn too. Maybe a spider or a fly or a bird that happened to be flying around the house. Oh, I don't know. Mo fell silent. Sometimes, when he had made up such a good story that Maggie thought it was true, he would suddenly smile and say, You fell for that one, Maggie. Like the time on her 7th birthday when he told her he'd seen fairies among the crocuses in the garden. But the smile didn't come this time. I searched the whole house for your mother. No sign of her, he went on. When I came back to the All I can see out the corner of my eye is you yelling more water and giving me a hydrate redeem. I will drink and then we'll continue on this page. Okay, I did just drink a bunch though, I swear. Okay, I'm doubly hydrated. Alrighty. I searched the whole house for your mother. No sign of her, he went on. And when I came back to the living room, Dustfinger had vanished, and so had his friend with the horns. But the sword was still there. And it felt so real that I decided not to doubt my sanity. I put you to bed. I think I told you your mother had already gone to sleep. And then I began reading Inkheart out loud again. I read the whole damn book until I was hoarse and the sun was rising, but nothing came out of it except a bat and a silken cloak, which I later used to line your book box. I tried again and again during the days and nights that followed, till my eyes were burning and the letters danced drunkenly on the page. I didn't eat, I didn't sleep. I kept making up different stories for you to explain where your mother was, and I took good care you were never in the room with me when I was reading aloud, in case you disappeared too. I wasn't worried about myself. Oddly enough, I had a feeling that the person reading the book ran no risk of slipping into its pages. I still don't know whether I was right. Mo flicked a midge off his hand. I read until I couldn't hear my own voice any more, he went on. But your mother didn't come back, Maggie. Instead, a strange little man as transparent as if he were made of glass appeared in my living room on the 5th day, and the postman disappeared just as he was putting the mail in our letterbox. I found his bike out in the yard. After that, I knew that neither walls nor locked doors would keep you safe, you or anybody else. So I decided never to read aloud from a book again. Not from Inkheart or from any other book. What happened to the little glass man? Asked Maggie. Mo sighed. He broke into pieces only a few days later when a heavy truck drove past the house. Obviously, very few creatures move easily from one world to another. We both know what fun it can be to get right into a book and live there for a while. But falling out of a story and suddenly finding yourself in this world doesn't seem too much fun at all. It broke Dustfinger's heart. Oh, he has a heart, does he? Inquired Eleanor bitterly. It would be better for him if he didn't, replied Mo. More than a week passed before he was back at my door again. It was night, of course. He prefers night to day. I was just packing. I decided it was safer to leave, since I didn't want to be driving Basta and Capricorn out of my house at Sword Point again. Dustfinger's reappearance showed that I was right to feel anxious. It was well after midnight when he turned up, but I couldn't sleep anyway. Mo stroked Maggie's hair. You weren't sleeping well then either. With bad dreams, however much I tried to keep them away with my stories. I was just packing the tools in my workshop when there was a knock on the front door. A very soft, almost furtive knock. Dustfinger emerged from the dark as suddenly as he did when he came to our house 4 days ago. Heavens, was it really only 4 days? Well, When he came back that first time, he looked as if it had been too long since he'd eaten. He was thin as a stray cat and his eyes were dull. Send me back, he begged. Send me back. This world will be the death of me. It's too fast, too crowded, too noisy. If I don't die of homesickness, I shall starve to death. I don't know how to make a living. I don't know anything. I'm like a fish out of water, he said. And he refused to believe that I couldn't do it. He wanted to see the book and try for himself, even though he could scarcely read. But there was no way I could let him have it. It would have been like giving away the very last part I still had of your mother. Luckily, I did it well. I let Dustfinger sleep on the sofa and came down next morning to find him still searching the bookshelves. Over the next few years, he kept on turning up, following us wherever he went, until I got sick and tired of it. I made off with you in secret like a thief in the night. After that, I saw no more of him for 5 years, until 4 days ago. Maggie looked at him. You still feel sorry for him, she said. Mo was silent. At last he said, sometimes. Eleanor's comment on that was a snort of contempt. You're even crazier than I thought, she said. It's that idiot's fault we're in this hole. It's his fault if they cut our throats, and you still feel sorry for him? Mo shrugged his shoulders and looked up at the ceiling, where a few moths were fluttering around the naked light bulb. No doubt Capricorn has promised to take him back, he said. Unlike me, he realized that Dustfinger would do anything in return for such a promise. All he wants is to go back to his own world. He doesn't even stop to ask if his story there has a happy ending. Well, that's no different from real life, remarked Eleanor gloomily. You never know if things will turn out well. Just now our own story looks like coming to a bad end. Maggie sat with her arms clasped round her legs, her chin on her knees, staring at the dirty white walls. In her mind's eye she saw the N in front of her, the N with the horned marten sitting on it, and felt as if her mother were looking out from beyond the big capital letter. Her mother as she was in the faded photograph under Mo's pillow. So she hadn't run away after all. Did she like it in that other world? Did she still remember her daughter? Or were Maggie and Mo just a fading picture for her too? Did she long to be back in her own world just as Dustfinger did? And did Capricorn long to be back in his world as well? Was that what he wanted? For Mo to read him back again? What would happen when Capricorn realized that Mo simply couldn't do it? Maggie shuddered. It seems Capricorn has someone else to read aloud to him now. Mo went on as if he had guessed her thoughts. Bester told me about the man, probably to show me I'm not by any means indispensable. Apparently he's read several useful assistants for Capricorn out of a book already. Oh yes, then why does he want you? Eleanor sat up, rubbing her behind and groaning. I don't understand any of this. I just hope it's all a bad dream. The kind you wake up from with a stiff neck and a bad taste in your mouth. Maggie doubted whether Eleanor really had any such hope. The damp straw felt too real, and so did the cold wall behind them. She leaned against Mo's shoulder again and closed her eyes. She was very sorry. She had scarcely read a line of Inkheart. She knew nothing at all about the story into which her mother had disappeared. All she knew was Mo's other stories, about the fabulous exploits that had kept her mother away, tales of the adventures she was having in distant lands, of fearsome enemies who kept preventing her from coming home, and of a box she was filling for Maggie, putting something new and wonderful in it at every very enchanted place she visited. Mo, she asked, do you think she likes being in that story? It took Mo quite a long time to answer. She'd certainly like the fairies, he said at last, although they're deceitful little things. If I know her, she'll be putting out bowls of milk for the brownies. Yes, I think she'd like that part of it. So what wouldn't she like? Maggie looked at him anxiously. Mo hesitated. The evil in it, he finally said. So many bad things happen in that book, and she never found out that it all ends reasonably well. After all, I never finished reading her the whole story. That's what she wouldn't like. No, of course not, said Eleanor. But how do you know the story hasn't changed anyway? After you read Capricorn and his friends out of it, now we're lumbered here with them here. Yes, said Mo, but they're still in the book too. Believe me. I've read it often enough since they came out of it, and the story's still about them. Dustfinger, Basta, and Capricorn. Doesn't that mean everything is still the way it was? Capricorn is still there, rolling up against a shadow of him in this world? He's pretty frightening for a shadow, said Eleanor. Yes, you're right, agreed Mo. Perhaps things have changed there after all. Perhaps there's another, much larger story behind the printed one. A story that changes just as our own world does. I wanted to put some giant emotes, but I don't want to interrupt. If you really want to throw some in, do you want to do it when the next ad break is here? We've got one in 16 minutes. If you'd like, that would probably be a good time for it. Up to you though, no pressure at all. I will wait. Okay. Go for it, thank you. Perhaps there's another, much larger story behind that. Why am I being dumbed, Wolfie? This is rude. Anyway. A story that changes just as our own world does, and the letters on the page tell us only as much as we'd see peering through the keyhole. Perhaps the story in the book is just the lid on a pan and always stays the same, but underneath there's a whole world that goes on developing and changing like our own. I'm bored. Well, you can sit here and listen to the story if you want, or you can listen to part 1, which is on my YouTube. It's up to you. Eleanor groaned. For heaven's sake, Mortimer, she said, stop it, you're giving me a headache. I don't think I can help you, Wolfie. It made my own head feel like bursting when I tried to make sense of it all, replied Meg gloomily. After that they said nothing for quite a long time, all three of them absorbed in their own thoughts. Eleanor was the first to speak again, although it sounded almost as if she were talking to herself. Heavens above, she murmured, taking off her shoes. To think of all the times I've wished I could slip right into one of my favourite books. But that's the advantage of reading, you can shut the book whenever you want. Groaning, she wriggled her toes and began walking up and down. Maggie had to suppress a giggle. Eleanor looked so funny, hobbling from the wall to the door and back again with her aching feet, back and forth like a clockwork toy. Eleanor, you're driving me bonkers. Do sit down again, said Mo. No, I won't, she snapped back. I'll go mad myself if I stay sitting down. Mo made a face and put his arm round Maggie's shoulders. All right, let's leave her to it, he whispered. By the time she's covered 10 kilometres, she'll fall down exhausted. But you ought to get some sleep now. You can have my bed. It's not as bad as it looks. If you close your eyes very tight, you can imagine your Wilbur the pig sleeping comfortably in his sty. Or Wart sleeping in the grass with the wild geese. Maggie couldn't help yawning. How often she and Mo had played this game. Which book can you think of? Which part have we forgotten? Oh yes, that one. It's ages since I thought about that story. Wearily, as she lay down on the prickly straw, Mo pulled his sweater off over his head and covered her up with it. You need a blanket all the same, he said, even if you're a pig or a goose. But you'll freeze. Nonsense. And where will you and Eleanor sleep? Maggie yawned again. She hadn't realised how tired she was. Eleanor was still pacing from wall to wall. What's all this about sleeping? She said. We're going to keep watch, of course. All right, murmured Maggie, burying her nose in Mo's sweater. He's back with me, she thought, as drowsiness weighed down her eyelids. Nothing else matters. And then she thought, oh, if only I could read some more of that book. But Inkheart was in Capricorn's hands. She didn't want to think of him now, or she would never get to sleep. Never. Later, she didn't know how long she had slept. Perhaps her cold feet woke her, or the itchy straw under her head. Her watch said 4 o'clock. There was nothing in the windowless room to tell whether it was night or day, but Maggie couldn't imagine that the night was over yet. Mo was sitting near the door with Eleanor. They both looked tired and anxious, and they were talking in low voices. Yes, they still think I'm a magician, Mo was saying. They gave me that ridiculous name, Silvertongue, and Capricorn is firmly convinced I can repeat the trick any time with any book at all. And, and can you? Asked Eleanor. You weren't telling us the whole story earlier, were you? Mo didn't answer for a long time. No, he said at last, because I don't want Maggie thinking I'm some kind of a magician too. So you've, well, read things out of a book quite often? Mo nodded. I always liked reading aloud, even as a boy. One day, when I was reading Tom Sawyer to a friend, a dead cat suddenly appeared on the carpet, lying there stiff as a board. I only noticed later that one of my soft toys had vanished. I think both our hearts missed a beat, and my friend and I swore to each other, sealing the oath with blood like Tom and Huck, that we'd never tell anyone about the cat. After that, of course, I kept trying again in secret, without any witnesses, but it never seemed to happen when I wanted. In fact, there didn't seem to be any rules at all, except that it only happened with stories I liked. Of course, I kept everything that came out of books, except for the snozzcumber I got out of the book about the friendly giant. It stank too much. When Maggie was still very small, things sometimes came out of her picture books. A feather, a tiny shoe. We put them in her book box without telling her where they came from, although I should never have picked up a book again for fear the giant serpent with toothache or some other alarming creature might appear. But I'd never, never managed to bring anything living out of a book, Eleanor, until that night. Ray looked at the palm of his hands as if seeing there all the things his voice had lured out of books. Why couldn't it have been some nice creature if it had to happen? Something like, oh, Baba the elephant. Maggie would have been enchanted. Yes, I certainly would, thought Maggie. She remembered the little shoe and the feather as well. It had been emerald green, like the plumage of Dr. Doolittle's parrot, Polynesia. Well, it could have been worse. Typical Eleanor. As if it wasn't bad enough to be locked up in a tumble-down house, far away from ordinary life, surrounded by black-clad men with faces like birds of prey and knives in their belts. But obviously Eleanor really could imagine something worse. Suppose Long John Silver had suddenly appeared in your living room, striking out with his wooden crutch, she whispered. I think I prefer this Capricorn after all, you know what? When we're home again, in my house, I mean, I'll give you a really nice book. Winnie the Pooh, for instance. Or maybe Where the Wild Things Are. I really wouldn't mind one of those monsters. I'll sit you down in my most comfortable armchair, make you a coffee, and then you can read aloud. How about it? Mo laughed quietly, and for a moment his face didn't look quite so careworn. No, Eleanor, I shall do no such thing, although it sounds very tempting. But I swore never to read aloud again. Who knows who might disappear next time, and perhaps there's some unpleasant character we never noticed even in the Pooh books. Or suppose I read Pooh himself out of his book. What would he do here without his friends in the 1,000-acre wood? His poor little heart would break, like dust fingers. Oh, for goodness sake! Eleanor impatiently dismissed this idea. How often do I have to tell you that fool has no heart? Very well, then. Let me ask you another question, because I'd very much like to know the answer. Eleanor lowered her voice, and Maggie had to strain her ears to make out what she was saying. Who is this Capricorn in his own story? The villain of the piece, I suppose, but can you tell me any more about him? Maggie would have liked to know more about Capricorn too, but Mo was suddenly not very forthcoming. All he would say was, the less you know about him, the better. Then he fell silent. Eleanor kept on at him for a while, but Mo evaded all her questions. He simply did not seem to want to talk about Capricorn. Maggie could see from his face that his thoughts were somewhere else entirely. At some point Eleanor nodded off, curled up on the cold floor as if trying to keep herself warm with her own body. But Mo went on sitting there with his back against the wall. As Maggie felt herself drift off to sleep again, Mo's face stayed with her in her slumbers. It emerged in her dreams like a dark moon with figures leaping from its mouth, living creatures. Fat, thin, large, small, they hopped out and ran away in a long line. A woman, scarcely more than a shadow, was dancing on the moon's nose, and suddenly the moon smiled. Chapter 17. The Betrayer Betrayed. Sometime near daybreak, the feeble light from the electric bulb that had helped them through the night flickered out. Mo and Eleanor were asleep near the locked door, but Maggie lay in the dark with her eyes open, feeling fear ooze out of the cold walls. She listened to Eleanor's breathing and her father's, and more than anything wished for a candle and a book to keep the fear away. seemed to be everywhere. A malicious, disembodied creature that had just been waiting for the light to go out so that it could steal close to her in the darkness and take her in its cold arms. Maggie sat up, fought for breath, and crawled over to Mo on all fours. She curled up in a ball beside him, the way she used to do when she was little, and waited for the light of dawn to come in under the door. When the light came, 2 of Capricorn's men followed. Mo had only just sat up warily, and Eleanor was rubbing her aching back and muttering crossly when they heard the footsteps. They weren't Basta's footsteps. One of the 2 men, a great tall beanpole, looked as if a giant had pressed his face flat with his thumb. The other was small and thin, with a goatee beard on his receding chin. He kept fiddling with his shotgun and glowered unpleasantly at the 3 of them, as if he felt like shooting them on the spot. "Come on then, get a move on," he snapped as they stumbled out into the bright light of day, blinking. Maggie tried to remember whether his voice was one of those who she had heard in Eleanor's library, but she wasn't sure. Capricorn had many men. It was a fine, warm morning, the sky arched blue and cloudless above Capricorn's village, and a couple of finches were twittering in a rose bush, growing wild among the old houses, as if there were no danger in the world but a hungry cat or 2. Mo took Maggie's arm as they stepped outside. Eleanor had to get her shoes on first, and when the man with the goatee tried hauling her roughly out because she didn't move fast enough for him, she pushed his hands away and fired a volley of bad language at him. That simply made the 2 men laugh, whereupon Eleanor tightened her lips and confined herself to a hostile glance. Capricorn's men were in a hurry. They led Mo, Maggie, and Eleanor back the way Basta had brought them the night before. The flat-faced men went far ahead of them, and the man with the goatee brought up the rear, shotgun at the ready. He dragged one leg as he walked, but nonetheless he kept urging them on, as if to prove that he could move faster than they could, even though he limped. Even by day, Capricorn's village appeared curiously deserted, and not just because of the many empty houses, which looked even more dismal in the sunlight. There was hardly anyone to be seen in the narrow alleys, only a few of the black jackets, as Maggie had secretly baptized them, with skinny boys following them like puppies. Maggie only twice saw a woman passing in a hurry. She could see no children playing or running after their mothers, only cats, black, white, ginger, tortoise-shell tabby cats, lying in the warm sun on top of walls, in doorways, on lintels. It was deathly quiet among the houses of Capricorn's village, and everything that went on seemed to be done in secret. Only the men with the guns didn't hide. They hung around together in gateways and at the corners of buildings, leaning lovingly on their weapons as they talked. There were no flowers outside the houses, like the flowers Maggie had seen in the towns and villages all along the coast. Instead, roofs had fallen in and wild bushes were in bloom, growing out through glassless windows. Some were so heavy with scent that they made Maggie feel dizzy. When they reached the square outside the church, Maggie thought the 2 men were taking them to Capricorn's house again, but they passed it on their left and went straight to the big church door. The tower of the church looked as if wind and weather had been wearing the masonry down for a dangerously long time. A rusty bell hung under the pointed roof, and scarcely a metre lower down, a seed carried by the wind had grown into a stunted tree that now clung to the sand-coloured stone. There were eyes painted on the church door, narrow red eyes, and ugly stone demons the height of a man stood on either side of the entrance, their teeth bared like savage dogs. "Welcome to the devil's house," said the bearded man with a mocking bow before opening the heavy door. "Don't do that, cockerel," the flat-faced man snapped to him, spitting 3 times on the dusty paving stones at his feet. "It's bad luck." The man with the goatee just laughed and patted the fat belly of one of the stone figures. "Oh, come on, flat-nose, you're almost as bad as Basta. Carry on like this and you'll be hanging a stinking rabbit's foot round your own neck too." "I like to be on the safe side," growled Flatnose. "You hear strange tales." "Yes, and who made them up?" "We did, you fool." "Some of them date from before our time." Whatever happened, Bo whispered to Eleanor and Maggie as the two men argued. Leave the talking to me. A sharp tongue can be dangerous here, believe me. Baster is quick to draw his knife and he'll use it too. Baster's not the only one here with a knife, Silvertongue, said Cockerel, pushing Mo into the dark church. Maggie hurried after him. It was dim and chilly inside the church. The morning light made its way in only through a few windows, painting pale patches high up on the walls and columns. No doubt these had once been grey like the flagstone floor, but now there was only one colour in Capricorn's church. Everything was red. The walls, the columns, even the ceiling were vermilion, the colour of raw meat or dried blood. For a moment Maggie felt as if she'd stepped into the belly of some monster. And in about a minute, we've got another ad going off. So I'm going to run the ad now and do some hydrating. And then we will get back to reading as ever. Ad coming up. This is your warning. Yay. What are we yaying about? I'm getting very EP. This is the ideal. I do these to attempt to get people to fall asleep. Because no one in my goddamn community sleeps ever, apparently. Thank you for all the redeems, Wolf. I am checking and hydrating. Thank you, Samu. Be healthy first, though. Well, I'm hydrating. Don't worry, guys. Hello, Samu. How's it going? Sleep for the week? It is not for the week. This is why we do those. If I sleep, the fucker in the corner gets jumpy. Yeah, you and your sleep paralysis demons. I swear to God, maybe they should listen to the stream too. They can take a nap. Sleep is for the weak. Jesus Christ, how do you both do it? Sleep is not for the weak. Guys, we like sleep. What's eep? Sleep, or eep, is that great thing where you rest and recuperate. It's going good. Was out and played some volleyball and had a date with my friend. But like a date or like a friend date? Which one? Eeped till 3 today? That's very good, to be fair. What time did you go to bed, though? No reason for it? There's plenty of reasons for Eep. Feeling rested, etc. Male friend? Okay. Fair enough. No date today, then. Don't get me wrong, being asleep? Great, awesome deal. Falling asleep? That's some cringe shit. No, it's not cringe if you listen to someone read a story to do it. That makes it not cringe, guys. If you fall asleep while listening to a story, it actually makes you cool. No date. One day, Samu, I'm sure. No eat for me today, grinding gacha. Well, this VOD will be here on Twitch and eventually it will be on YouTube. So if you need to eep and if the reading helps you, you can use that. Tell to eep at 2, I guess. That's not bad. Considering you slept till 3, I'd say that's fairly okay. I told you, didn't I? You'd be great at reading. Hehe, ahaha. You did mention this. Thank you, Wolf. Some people, do get fairly sleepy here. I did fall asleep during the last one, so at least I know it works. Ha ha ha! It works, guys. The reading and the sleeping. If you need to sleep, you can come here or to the VODs. We still have a solid amount of this book, and. There's 3 books in this series, which means we'll be reading for a hot minute. Plus, I'm glad that it works. No need for sleep. Yeah, for you it's still fairly early, Godcat. I don't get EP, I get more work. This is not good. Tell the work to go away. Now I gotta break my record of not sleeping for 29 hours now. Please, let's let's not break this record. I think it'd be great if people slept perhaps a little bit more, maybe more often. That'd be nice. Sleeping is good, guys. If you request art, I get more work though. I haven't technically requested anything apart from that everyone gets more sleep. So to make the fairy drawing, okay, yes, I did request that, but that's an outlier. That's only, you know, that's after that, I will have no specific requests. Unless you feel like drawing me a digital eye banner so I can use it as my banner everywhere else. But I've got a few artists in mind for this. And I also have no money, so there's that. I got 75 hours once and currently on 35 hours of being up. Okay, so you definitely need to sleep, Godcat. And you concern me. Yeah, I think that about sums it up. You need to sleep and you concern me. Wah? Don't wah at me. You're the one being like, hee hee, Holly. I'm currently on 35 hours of being awake. Don't go for 100. This is horrendous advice. We do not listen to Samu in this situation. Okay? Okay. This is a bad plan and a bad shout. And just bad. The Samu chat battling a boss while he looks down at chat while chat is fighting. You're giving Samu painting requests now? Let the dude sleep. No one here sleeps enough. Apart from, I was going to say apart from me, but I also don't sleep enough, so I can't technically say shit. However, I'm attempting to get my sleep schedule semi-okay. And I'm attempting to get your guys' sleep schedule semi-okay. So that's good at least. Just saying. I'm gonna try doing it. Go for it. Need some time. Take as much time as you want, Sammy. Yes, since you're reading, Ollie. We would do the... What word am I looking for here? We would do any paint redeems at the end of stream anyway. So obviously I won't be reading the end of stream. We do still have 2 hours left though. Don't expect too much. Okie dokie. No expectations. In what? If I make it to the end, I'm gonna draw with you. Okie doke. Well, I mean, so far, I haven't had a specific drawing request. You've had one. The Sammy draws it always good. That's just a fact now. Yeah, quite literally. I've never seen a bad Sammy drawing. I doubt I ever will. Makes fun drawing with mouse and keyboard. It's more challenging. Yeah, it's certainly challenging. I'm back after quite a lot of time. Welcome back, Fratello. Good to see you again. Funnily enough, I'm actually like 10 seconds away from going to the bathroom really quickly, so technically it's not ideal timing, but you'll have chat here with you. I'm glad you like my drawing. Makes my days. They're wonderful drawings, Samu. I keep posting them on my Twitter being like, look, look. Do you want something to draw? I don't mind, Utes. I really don't. It may end up cutting into reading time though, because obviously I'll be going until 12. So if you give me a prompt that I have to draw, we may end up doing the reading like 15 minutes earlier so that we can do the drawing part. I don't have Twitter, so I don't see. Do you want me to send you what they are or look like? We've got an art hashtag on Twitter now, so it's WizardCatArt. So everyone can see the beautiful art. And if anyone posts art of me on Twitter, they can use the hashtag and then I can find it in there. Oh, a whole month. Very nice, Fratello. I don't want to cut into reading time. Fair enough. You've still always got tomorrow to do some painting. I'm gonna pop to the bathroom and then we will get back to reading, okay? Okay. I'll be back in a second. You can indeed not hear me. Thank you, Utes. I was saying, have a good time, Fratello. Thank you for stopping back in with us. I was about to say, yeah, I'm not very bright. Sometimes I forget to press the button. But it's okay. Am I going schizophrenic? No. No, not today. Right, I'm reading more. And then, no, I lie. I'm drinking more, and then I'm reading more. Thank you for the bathroom emojis, Dylan. Very nice. You're all schizophrenic. Alright. We're back to reading. I'm half-ish asleep, but now I gotta watch the new Wednesday episodes. Honestly, entirely valid. I will be watching them soon myself. Probably on Saturday. I think that's currently my only free day. Gotta do it. Enjoy your episodes, Doolin. We will hop back to the reading. I need to figure out where I'm at. Joke. Read accent camera quick so I can see. Okie doke. Yes, I have a Twitter, guys. Go and follow it. I post things on there sometimes, like my schedule and clips, and I enter a shit ton of giveaways, and I don't win them. It's fun. And I post the art. I'd love to have a watch party to any movie. Well. I'm down for that. Oh, okay. Alright. Whenever we finish reading book one, we'll do a watch party for the movie of Inkheart, because the book I'm currently reading has a movie adaptation, and I enjoy it. So we will watch the movie adaptation in the Discord server when we finish book one, and we can all hang out, and then we can figure out if we want to continue reading the rest of the series of Inkheart, or if we want to switch to a different book slash series entirely. Plus, what we should watch the next movie sesh. Because I'll organise probably some more movie sessions in the disc as well anyway. Maybe not today, I got 4 episodes. I'll join the next one. That is a-okay. We're only having this when we finish the book. And I am 164 pages in. And there's about 530. So there's that. I thought of something where if we read the book, then watched an adaptation of the book if there is one. Yeah, that sounds fun. We could pick books that have adaptations Or if anyone has ever wanted to read a specific book but never got round to it, we could do that as well. It's just a case of me having the book. Okay. Alrighty. If anyone wants to send a book for me to read, you can purchase a surprise gift off of my throne and find books in there. We've got Dracula in there because Wolf Brigade wants me to read it. So, if people ever want a super specific book that I haven't got yet, we can do that as well. I've got quite a variety of books though, so we should be good for a bit. We can read some Terry Pratchett stuff as well. I really enjoy Terry Pratchett books. And then I can do funny voices because there's a lot of goblins in there. There's not too many goblins here, so I can't do any funny goblin voices. What can you do? Then again though, there'll be more funky little creatures in book 2 and 3 of this. So we could do some then. Anyway, I'm going off topic. We only have 15 minutes until the next ad, so we will read for 15 minutes and then do another ad. Alrighty. In a corner of the entrance stood the statue of an angel. A wing was broken off, and the black jacket of one of Capricorn's men had been hung over the other wing, while someone had stuck a pair of fancy dress horns on its head. The kind children wear to parties. Its halo was still there between them. The angel had probably once stood on the stone plinth in front of the first column. Now it had had to give way to another statue, whose gaunt, waxen face seemed to look down at Meggie with a supercilious expression. Whoever had carved it wasn't very good at his trade. Its features were painted like the face of a plastic doll, with oddly red lips and blue eyes that held none of the cold detachment the colourless eyes of the real Capricorn turned on the world. But to make up for that, the statue was at least twice the height of its living model, and all who passed it had to tilt their head back to look up at its pale face. "Is that allowed, Mo?" asked Maggie quietly. "Putting up a statue of yourself in a church?" "Oh, it's a very old custom," Eleanor whispered back. "Statues in churches aren't often the statues of saints. Most saints couldn't have paid the sculptor. In the Cathedral of—" Cockerell prodded her in the back so roughly that she stumbled forward. "Get a move on," he growled, "and bow next time you pass him. Understand?" "Bow?" Eleanor was going to stand her ground, but Mo quickly made her go on. "Who on earth can take this circus seriously?" she said crossly. "If you don't keep your mouth shut," Mo told her in a whisper, "you'll soon find out how seriously they take everything here." Eleanor looked at the scratch on his forehead and said no more. Capricorn's church contained no pews of the kind Meggie had seen in other churches, just 2 long wooden tables with benches, one on each side of the nave. There were dirty plates on them, coffee-stained mugs, wooden boards where cheese rinds lay, knives, sausages, empty bread baskets. Several women were busy clearing all this away. Without pausing in their work, they glanced up as Cockerell and Flatnose passed with their 3 captives. Maggie thought they looked like birds, hunching their heads down beneath their wings in case someone might strike them off. Not only were the pews missing from Capricorn's church, but the altar had gone too. In its place there now stood a massive chair, upholstered in red and with designs carved thickly into its legs and arms. Leading up to it were 4 shallow steps carpeted in black. Maggie wasn't sure why she counted them. And crouching on the top step, just a few paces away from the chair, his sandy hair ruffled as usual, was Dustfinger, apparently lost in thought as he let Gwyn run up and down his outstretched arm. As Maggie came down the nave with Mo and Eleanor, Dustfinger raised his head briefly. Gwyn climbed up to his shoulder, baring his tiny teeth, sharp as splinters of glass, as if he had recognized the hatred in Maggie's eyes as they rested on his master. Now she knew why the Marzen had horns, and why his twin was shown on the page of a book. She understood it all. Why Dustfinger thought the world too fast and too noisy, why he didn't understand cars and often looked as if he was somewhere else entirely. But she felt none of the sympathy Mo had shown for him. His scarred face only reminded her of the lies he had told to lure her out to him, like the Pied Piper in the story. He had played with her as he played with fire, with his brightly coloured juggler's balls. Come along, Meggie, this way. Meggie, trust me, Meggie. She felt like running up the steps and striking his lying mouth. Dustfinger must have guessed her thoughts and was avoiding her eyes. I mean, it seems like I can only solo mode. I should be back soon though. Sure, no worries. Not looking at Mo and Eleanor either, he put a hand in his trouser pocket and brought out a matchbox, as if unconscious of what he was doing. He took out a match, lit it, and gazed at the flame, lost in thought as he passed a finger through it, almost caressingly, until it singed his fingertip. Maggie looked away. She didn't want to see him. She wanted to forget he was there. To her left, at the foot of the steps, stood 2 drum-shaped iron braziers, rusty brown, with wood heaped up in them, pale, freshly cut firewood, log upon log. Maggie was just wondering what the wood was for, when more steps echoed through the church. Pastor was walking down the nave with a petrol can in his hand. Reluctantly, Cockerel and Flatnose gave way as he pushed past them. Ah, so Dustfinger's playing with his best friend again, he sneered as he climbed down the shallow steps. Dustfinger lowered the matchstick and straightened up. Here you are, said Basta, putting the petrol can down at his feet. Another toy for you. Light us a fire, that's what you like best. Dustfinger threw away the spent match and lit another. So how about you? He asked quietly, raising the burning match to Basta's face. Still afraid of fire, are you? Basta knocked the match out of his hand. Oh, you shouldn't do that, said Dustfinger. It means bad luck. You know how quickly fire takes offence. For a moment, Meggie thought Basta was going to hit him, and she wasn't the only one. All eyes were turned on the 2 men, but something seemed to protect Dustfinger. Perhaps it really was the fire. You're lucky I've only just cleaned my knife, spat Basta. One more trick like that, though, and I'll carve a few nice new patterns on your ugly face, and make myself a fur collar out of your marten. Gwyn uttered a soft, threatening snarl, and wrapped himself around Dustfinger's neck. Dustfinger bent, picked up the spent matches, and put them back in the matchbox. Yes, I'm sure you enjoyed that, he said, still without looking at Basta. But why would I want to light a fire just now? I wonder. Never you mind that, just do it. Then the rest of us can keep it fed. Make sure it's a large, hungry blaze, not one of those tame little fires you like to play with. Dustfinger picked up the petrol can and slowly climbed down the steps. He was standing beside the rusty braziers when the church door opened for the 2nd time. Then he turned at the sound of the heavy wooden door creaking and saw Capricorn appear between the red columns. He glanced at his statue, as if to make sure it still gave a flattering enough image of him, and strode quickly down the nave. He was wearing a suit as red as the church walls, only the shirt beneath it was black, and he had a black feather in his buttonhole. A good 6 of his men were following him, like crows following a peacock. Their steps seemed to echo all the way up to the ceiling. Meggie reached for Mo's hand. So our guests are here already, said Capricorn, stopping in front of them. Did you sleep well, Silvertongue? He had curiously soft, curving, almost feminine lips, and as he spoke he kept running his little finger along them as if to retrace them. They were as bloodless as the rest of his face. Wasn't it kind of me to reunite you with your little girl last night? At first I meant it to be a surprise present for you today, but then I thought, Capricorn, you really owe that child something for bringing you what you've wanted so long, and of her own free will, too. He was holding Inkheart. Maggie saw Mo's gaze linger on the book. Capricorn was a tall man, but Mo stood a few centimetres taller, which obviously displeased Capricorn. He stood very upright, as if that would make up for the difference. Let Eleanor take my daughter home with her, said Mo. Let them go, and I'll try to read you back again. I'll read you anything you like, but let the 2 of them go first. What was he talking about? Maggie looked at him in horror. No, she said. No, Mo, I don't want to go away. But no one was paying any attention to her. Let them go. Capricorn turned to his men. Hear that? Why would I do such a crazy thing now they're here? The men laughed, but Capricorn turned to Mo again. You know as well as I do that from now on you'll do whatever I want, he said. Now that she's here, I'm sure you won't go on denying us a demonstration of your skill. Mo squeezed Maggie's hand so hard her fingers hurt. As for this book, said Capricorn, looking at Inkheart with as much dislike as if it had bitten his pale fingers. This extremely tedious, stupid, and extraordinarily long-winded book, I can assure you, I have no intention of ever again letting myself be spellbound by its story. All those troublesome creatures, those fluttering fairies with their twittering voices, the swarming, scrabbling, stupid beasts everywhere, the smell of fur and dung. All through this book you kept falling over bandy-legged brownies in the marketplace, and when you went hunting, the giants scared the game away with their huge feet. Talking trees, whispering pools, was there anything in that world that didn't have the power of speech? And then those endless muddy roads, the nearest town, if town it could be called, that pack of well-born, finely dressed princes in their castles, those stinking peasants, so poor there was nothing to be got out of them, and the vagabonds and beggars with vermin dropping from their hair. Oh, how sick I was of them all. Capricorn made a sign, and one of his men brought in a large cardboard box. You could see from the way he carried it that it was very heavy. The man put it down on the grey flagstones in front of Capricorn with a sigh of relief. Capricorn handed Cockerel, who was standing beside him, the book that Mo had kept from him for so long, and bent to open the box. It was full to the brim with books. It's been a great deal of trouble finding them all, said Capricorn as he reached into the box and took out 2 books. They may look different, but the contents are the same. The fact that the story has been printed in several languages made the search even more difficult. A particularly useless feature of this world were those different languages, which was simpler in our own world, wasn't it, Dustfinger? Dustfinger made no answer. He stood there, holding the petrol can and staring at the box. Capricorn strolled over to him and threw the 2 books into one of the braziers. What are you doing? Dustfinger tried to snatch them out, but Basta pushed him away. They stay where they are, he growled. Dustfinger stepped back, holding the can behind his back, but Basta grabbed it from his hands. Why, it looks as if our fire eater would rather let someone else light the fire today, he mocked. Dustfinger cast him a glance full of hatred. Face rigid, he watched Capricorn's men throw more and more books into the braziers. In the end, there were over 24 copies of Inkheart on the piles of firewood, their pages crumpled, their bindings wrenched apart like broken wings. You know what always got me down back in our old world, Dustfinger? Asked Capricorn as he took the petrol can from Basta's hand. The difficulty of lighting a fire. It wasn't any problem to you, of course. You could even talk to fire. Very likely one of those grunting brownies taught you how. But it was tedious business for the rest of us. The wood was always damp, or the wind blew down the chimney. I know you long for the good old days. You miss all your chirping, fluttering friends. But I don't shed a tear for any of that. This world is far better equipped than the one we had to be content with for so many years. Dustfinger did not seem to hear a word of what Capricorn was saying. He just stared at the petrol and smelled its fumes as it was poured over the books. The pages sucked it up as greedily as if they were welcoming their own end. Where did they all come from? He stammered. You almost told me there was just 1 copy left, Silver Tongues. Yes, I told you all kinds of things. Capricorn put his hand in his trouser pocket. You're such a gullible fellow, Dustfinger. It's fun to tell you lies. Your innocence always amazed me. After all, you lie very cleverly yourself. But you're too ready to believe what you want to believe. That's your trouble. Well, you can safely believe me now. These, he said, tapping the petrol-soaked pile of books, these really are the last copies of our ink-black home. It's taken Basta and the others years to track them all down in shabby lending libraries and second-hand bookshops. Dustfinger looked longingly at the books. as a man dying of thirst might look at the last glass of water in existence. But you can't burn them, he stammered. You promised to send me back if I found you Silvertongue's book. That's why I told you where he was. That's why I brought you his daughter. Capricorn merely shrugged his shoulders and took the book from Cockerell's hands. The book with the green binding that Maggie and Eleanor had been so eager to give him. The book for which he had made his men bring Mo all this way. The book for which Dustfinger had betrayed them all. I'd have promised to fetch you down the moon from the sky if that would have done me any good, said Capricorn, looking bored as he flung the last copy of Inkheart onto the pile with its companions. I'm happy to make promises, especially promises I can't keep. Then he took a lighter from his trouser pocket. Dustfinger was about to leap at it to strike it out of his hand, but Capricorn made a sign to Flatnose. Flatnose was so tall and broad that beside him Dustfinger looked almost like a child. Indeed, the man took hold of him as if he were a badly behaved little boy. Fur bristling, Gwyn leaped off Dustfinger's shoulder. One of Capricorn's men kicked out as the marten shot past his legs, but Gwyn got away and disappeared behind one of the red columns. The other men stood there laughing at Dustfinger's desperate attempts to free himself from Flatnose's iron grasp. Flatnose thought it greatly amusing to let Dustfinger get just close enough to the petrol-soaked books to touch the top volumes with his fingers. Such cruelty made Maggie feel quite ill. Mo took a step forward as if to go to Dustfinger's aid, but Master barred his way, a knife in his hand. Its blade, narrow and shiny, looked terribly sharp, held against Mo's throat. Eleanor screamed and directed a torrent of curses at Basta that Maggie had never even heard before. Oh, there's actually an ad starting now. I'm very sorry I didn't realise it, but it should be starting in a second, so we will go and read once it's sorted itself out. I will do more hydration. Yay. I'd say that everyone else should also drink. Remember to hydrate if you're still awake. I'm debating right now in a gacha game. What are you debating, Yudes? This ad says that it's starting soon, but it doesn't actually start. But also I can't run it manually. So it's really good, basically. The joys of Twitch. I don't know how to describe it. I wish I could help, but I don't know enough about Honkai to figure out what you're doing. So there is that. Just more predicament, I'd say. I guess how it sucks to work in an organisation that is in the game, but this NPC worker is very set on working there, I guess. To be fair, if it's an NPC, it has to be kind of set on working there. I don't think they can really move. I'm just pointing out the bad shit about it. What, to the NPC? We're gonna make this NPC question his life choices. He probably can't even remember half of it if his lore isn't in the game. Oh, the poor NPC. I already am forcing the NPC to question his life choices, or are you questioning your life choices? Both of these don't sound ideal. His life choices. Okay. Righto. Well. How is the NPC dealing with this? One of the options is to convince him to quit. Is he going to be able to get another job? That'd be my concern. We don't know what the job security industry is like in Honkai. Could be horrendous. Just saying. You send the picture. I can see that the ad has finished. So I will get back to doing some reading and we will see how far we get. We still have like an hour and 15 minutes left of stream though. I think we've made a lot of progress. Because then I will have a look at the picture at the end of stream or on our next front with the ad break. He's crying. Are you gonna give this poor man a job once he's quit his? Don't make the NPCs cry. This feels less than ideal. Hmm. Okay. We are back to reading 26 minutes until our next ad. Where was I? Okay. Let me have one of them, Capricorn, just one. Mo cried, and only then did Maggie realise that he had not been going to help Dustfinger, but was thinking of the book. I promise never to read aloud a line of it that mentions your name. You? Are you mad? You're the last man I'd give one to, replied Capricorn. One day you might be unable to control your tongue after all, and I'd land back in that ridiculous story again. No, thank you very much. Nonsense, cried Mo. Why couldn't you read you back into it even if I wanted to? How often do I have to tell you that? Asked Dustfinger. I've explained it to him 1,000 times. I myself don't understand how or when these things happen. For heaven's sake, believe me. With a chilling smirk, Capricorn answered merely with a smile. I'm sorry, Silvertongue, but the fact is I don't believe anyone. You ought to know that by now. We're all liars when it serves our purpose. And with those words he flicked the lighter and held its flame to one of the books. The petrol had made the pages almost transparent like parchment, and they flared up at once. Even the stout cloth bindings caught light immediately, the linen turned black as the flames licked round it. When the third book caught fire, Dustfinger clicked Flatnose's kneecap so hard that the man screamed with pain and let go of him. Nimble as his marten, Dustfinger wriggled out of those powerful arms and stumbled towards the braziers. Without hesitating, he reached into the flames. Kneecaps? Yeah. He kicked his kneecap. That's a whole bunch. Leg bends the wrong way. It's not ideal. The book he plucked out. I know, right? Not ideal. The book he plucked out was already burning like a torch. Dustfinger dropped it onto the flagstone floor and reached into the fire again, with his other hand this time. But by now Flatnose had already grasped him by the collar and was shaking him so roughly that Dustfinger was gasping for air. I am not muted. Actually. Have you muted me? I assume we would have heard a bunch also getting kicked in the kneecaps, but I mean, Flatnose has returned quite quickly from it. Can you hear me, Utes? New concern. I can hear you now? Okay, excellent. I will continue then. Look at the lunatic, sneered Baster, as Dustfinger stared at his hands, his face distorted with pain. Can anyone explain what he wants so much? Maybe those ugly brownie girls who thought him so wonderful when he juggled in the marketplace, or the filthy hovels where he lived with other vagabonds. They smelled even worse than the rucksack he carries that stinking marten around in. Capricorn's men laughed as the book slowly crumpled into ashes. There was still a smell of petrol in the church, such an acrid smell that it made Maggie cough. Mo put a protective arm round her shoulders, as if Basta had threatened her rather than him. But who, thought Maggie, who could protect Mo? Eleanor was looking at his neck as anxiously as if she feared Bastard's knife might have left its mark there after all. Okay, see you in a minute. These fellows are out of their minds, she whispered. You know what they say when people start burning books, they'll soon burn human beings. Suppose we're the next to find ourselves on a pyre. Vesta seemed to hear what she was saying. He caught her eye and with a twisted smile kissed the blade of his knife. Eleanor fell silent as if she had swallowed her tongue. Capricorn had taken a snow-white handkerchief from his pocket. He cleaned his fingers with it carefully, as if to wipe even the memory of Inkheart off his hands. "Well, that's done at last," he remarked with a final nod at the smoking embers. Then, with a satisfied expression on his face, he climbed up to the chair that had replaced the altar. Capricorn sank into its red upholstery with a deep sigh. "Dustfinger, go to the kitchen and get Mortola to put something on your burns," he ordered in a commanding voice. "There'll be no use for anything without the use of your hands." Dustfinger looked at Mo for a long time before obeying this order. Head bent, with unsteady steps, he walked past Capricorn's men. The way to the church porch seemed endless. For a moment, as Dustfinger opened the door, bright sunlight shone into the building. As it closed behind him, Maggie, Mo, and Eleanor were left with Capricorn and his men, and the reek of petrol and burnt paper. "Now let's come to you, Silver Tongue," said Capricorn, stretching his legs. He was wearing black boots. He examined the gleaming leather with satisfaction, removing a scrap of charred paper from the toe of one boot. "Until now, I, Baxter, and the unfortunate Dustfinger are the only evidence that you can conjure up extraordinary magic out of little black letters. You yourself don't seem to trust your gift, if we're to believe you, which, as I was saying just now, I don't. On the contrary, I think you're a master of your craft, and I can scarcely wait for you to give us another taste of your skill at long last. Cockerel," his voice sounded irritated, "where's the reader? Didn't I tell you to bring him?" Cockerel stroked his beard nervously. "He was still busy choosing books," he stammered. "I'll fetch him right away." With a hasty bow, he limped off. Capricorn began drumming his fingers on the arms of his chair. "No doubt you already heard that I had to resort to the services of another reader while you were hiding from me so successfully," he said to Mo. "I found him by chance 5 years ago, but he's useless. You only have to look at Flatnose's face." Flatnose lowered his head, embarrassed, when all eyes turned on him. "And Cockerel owes him his limp, too. As for the girls you read out of his books for me, you should have just seen them. It'd give a man nightmares just to see their faces. Finally, I had him read to me only when I felt like amusing myself with his monsters. I actually found my men in this world of yours just by recruiting them when they were still young. There's a lonely boy who likes to play with fire in almost every village." Smiling, he inspected his fingernails like a satisfied cat examining its claws. "I've told the reader to find the right books for you. He lives in them like one of those pale worms that feed on paper." "And just what am I supposed to read out of his books for you?" His voice sounded bitter. "A few monsters, a couple of human horrors to suit the present company." He nodded in Baxter's direction. "For heaven's sake, Walter, don't put ideas into his head," whispered Eleanor, with a nervous glance at Capricorn. But Capricorn merely flicked some ash off his trousers and smiled. "No, thank you, Silver Tongue," he said. "I have enough men, and as for the monsters, well, perhaps we'll get around to them later. For the time being, we're doing very well with Baxter's trained dogs and the local snakes. They make excellent and deadly presents. No, Silver Tongue, all I want today is a test of your skill as gold. I've such an appetite for money. My men do their best to squeeze all that can be squeezed out of this part of the country." At these words from Capricorn, Baxter lovingly stroked his knife. "But it's never enough for all the wonderful things that can be bought in this infinitely wide world of yours. A world of so many pages, Silver Tongue. So very many pages, and I want to write my name on every one of them." "What kind of letters?" inquired Mo. "Is Baxter going to scratch them into the paper with his knife?" "My Baxter can't write," replied Capricorn calmly. "None of my men can either read or write. I've forbidden them to learn. But I got one of my maidservants to teach me how to read. And when there's something to be written, the reader does it. So you see, my dear Silver Tongue, I can make my mark on your world." Church door opened as if Cockrell had just been waiting for his cue. The man he ushered in had his head hunched between his shoulders and looked neither right nor left as he followed Cockrell. He was small and thin and couldn't be any older than Mo, but his back was bent like an old man's and his arms and legs moved awkwardly, as if he didn't quite know what to do with them. He kept nervously adjusting his glasses. The frame was held together over the bridge of his nose with sticky tape, as if it had been often broken. He was clutching a number of books to his chest with his left arm, as if they offered some protection from the stares turned on him from all sides in the sinister place to which he had been brought. When the two men eventually reached the front of the steps, Cockrell dug an elbow into his companion's ribs, and the man bowed so hurriedly that two of the books fell to the floor. He was quick to snatch them up and bowed to Capricorn a second time. "You've been waiting for you, Darius," said Capricorn. "I trust you found what I wanted." "Oh, yes, yes," stammered Darius, casting an almost reverent glance at Mo. "Is that him?" "Yes. Show him the books you've chosen." Darius nodded and bowed again, this time to Mo. These are all the stories with treasures in them," he stammered. "Finding them wasn't as easy as I had expected," he added, with the faintest note of reproach in his voice. "After all, there aren't so many books in this village, and however often I ask, no one brings me any more. If they do, the books are useless. But never mind that. Here they are. I think you'll be happy with my choice, anyway." He knelt down on the floor in front of Mo and began setting out the books side by side so that Mo could read the titles. The very first one alarmed Maggie. Treasure Island. She looked uneasily at Mo. Not that one, she thought. Not that book, Mo. But Mo had already picked up another book. Tales from the 1001 Nights. "I think this will do," he said. "There's sure to be plenty of gold in those stories, but I'm warning you again. I don't know what will happen. Because it never does happen when I want it to. I know you all think I'm a magician, but I'm not. The magic comes out of the books themselves, and I've got no more idea than you or any of your men how it works." Capricorn leaned back in his chair, looking expressionlessly at Mo. "How many more times are you going to tell me that, Silver Tongue?" he asked in bored tones. "You can say so as often as you like, but I don't believe it. In the world on which we finally slammed the door today, I frequently mingled with magicians, wizards, and witches, and I very often had to deal with their obstinacy. I know that Basta has given you a graphic account of the way we used to break their will, but in your case, now that your daughter is here as our guest, I'm sure such painful methods might be necessary." With these words, Capricorn looked pointedly at Basta. Mo tried to hold on to Maggie, but Basta moved faster. Pulling her towards him, he quickly put an arm round her neck and held her in a headlock. "Now on, Silver Tongue," continued Capricorn, his voice still sounding as indifferent as if he were talking about the weather. "From now on, Basta will be your daughter's personal shadow. This will provide her with reliable protection from snakes and fish dogs, but not, of course, from Basta himself. You'll be kind to her only as long as I say so, and that in turn will depend on whether I am pleased with your services. Have I made myself clear?" Mo looked first at him and then at Maggie. She did her best to look unafraid so that he would think there was no need to worry about her. After all, she had always been a better liar than he was. But this time he saw through the lie. He knew that her fear was as great as the fear she saw in her own eyes. "Perhaps all this is just a story too," thought Maggie desperately. "At any moment someone will close the book because it's so horrible and scary, and Mo and I will be back at home and I'll make him a coffee." She closed her eyes very tight, as if that would make her thoughts come true. But when she peered through her lashes, Basta was still standing behind her, and Flatnose was rubbing his squashed nostrils and turning his dog-like gaze on Capricorn. "Very well," said Mo wearily into the silence. "I'll read aloud to you, but Maggie and Eleanor can't stay in here." Maggie knew exactly what he was thinking. He was thinking of her mother, and wondering who might disappear this time. "Nonsense, of course they can stay here." Capricorn's voice was no longer careless. "You've got to get started before the book there in your hand falls to dust." He closed his eyes for a moment. Very well, but tell Bastard to put his knife away, he said hoarsely. If he hurts a hair of Meggie or Eleanor's heads, I promise you I'll read the plague out of a book to infect you and your men. Cockerel looked at Mo in alarm, and a shadow passed over even Bastard's face, but Capricorn just laughed. It reminds you, Silver Tongue, that you're speaking of a contagious disease, he said, and it doesn't stop short at little girls, so never mind the empty threats, just start reading. Now, at once, I want something out of that book first. He pointed to the book that Mo had just laid aside. Treasure Island. Chapter 18, Treasure Island. And so Maggie heard her father read aloud, for the first time in 9 years, in a draughty old church. Even many years later, the smell of burnt paper would come back to her as soon as she opened one of the books from which she had read that awful morning. It was chilly in Capricorn's church. Maggie was to remember that later too, although the sun must have been hot outside and high in the sky by the time Mo began to read. He simply sat down on the floor where he was, legs crossed, one book on his lap and the others beside him. Maggie quickly knelt down close to him before Bassi could catch hold of her. Here, get up these steps, all of you, Capricorn told his men, and take the woman with you, Flatnose. Only Bastard stays where he is. Eleanor resisted, but Flatnose merely seized a handful of her hair and hauled her along after him. Capricorn's men climbed the steps and sat at their master's feet, Eleanor among them like a pigeon with ruffled feathers in the middle of a mob of marauding crows. I'm going to take a quick drink. Mo opened the book on his lap and began leafing through it, frowning, as if searching the pages for the gold he was to read out of it for Capricorn. Cockerel, you will cut out the tongue of anyone who utters the slightest sound while Silvertongue is reading, said Capricorn, and Cockerel drew a knife from his belt and looked along the row of men as if already selecting his first victim. All was so deathly quiet inside the red church that Maggie thought she could hear Basta breathing behind her, but perhaps it was only the sound of her own fear. Judging by their faces, Capricorn's men seemed to be feeling far from happy. They were looking at Mo with expressions of apprehension mingled with dislike. Maggie understood that only too well. Perhaps one of them would soon vanish into the book through which Mo was leafing so undecidedly. Had Capricorn told them that such a thing might happen? Did even he know it? What if she herself vanished, as Mo obviously feared? Or Eleanor? Maggie, Mo whispered to her as if he had heard her thoughts. Hold on to me tight any way you can. Maggie nodded and clutched his sweater, as if that would be of any use. Yes, I think I found the right place, said Mo into the silence. He cast a last glance at Capricorn, looked at Eleanor, cleared his throat, and began to read. I think we'll do our ad now, and then we'll continue in a second. I shall run it away. We've got about an hour left of today's reading stream. If anyone's missed the first part, as ever, the VOD is on my YouTube. I think I'm going to end up popping to the bathroom again as well. I'll take another drink first. Okay, I'll be back in a second. We're back. I'll grab another drink, and then we'll start up again. Okay. We are at 3 for 35 minutes or so. Let's continue. This is a fun part of the book. Obviously, all the rest of it's fun too, but you know. Everything disappeared. The red walls of the church, the faces of Capricorn's men, Capricorn himself sitting in his chair. There was nothing but Mo's voice and the pictures forming in their minds from the letters on the page, like the patterns of a carpet taking shape on a loom. If Maggie could have hated Capricorn any more, she would have done so now. It was his fault that Mo had never once read aloud to her in all these years. To think of the magic he could have worked in her room with his voice, a voice that gave a different flavour to every word, made every sentence a melody. Even Cockrell had forgotten his knife and the tongues he was supposed to cut out, and was listening with a faraway expression on his face. Flatnose was staring into space, enraptured, as if a pirate ship with all sails set were truly cruising in through one of the church windows. The other men were equally entranced. There was not a sound to be heard but Mo's voice bringing the letters and words on the page to life. Only one of his audience seemed immune to the magic of it. Face expressionless, pale eyes fixed on Mo, Capricorn sat there waiting for the clink of coins amidst the harmony of the words, for chests of damp wood heavy with gold and silver. Mo did not keep him waiting long. It happened as he was reading what Jim Hawkins, a boy not much older than Maggie when he embarked on his terrifying adventure, saw in a dark cave. George's and Louise's, doubloons and double guineas, and moidores and sequins, the pictures of all the kings of Europe for the last 100 years, strange oriental pieces stamped with what looked like wisps of string or bits of spider's web, round pieces and square pieces and pieces bored through the middle as if to wear them round your neck. Nearly every variety of money in the world must, I think, have found a place in that collection. And for number, I am sure they were like autumn leaves, so that my back ached with stooping and my fingers with sorting them out. The maidservants were cleaning the last crumbs off the tables when coins suddenly came rolling over the bare wood. The women stumbled back, dropping their dishcloths, and pressing their hands to their mouths as the coins tumbled and leaped about their feet. Gold, silver, and copper coins jingled over the flagstone floor, clinking as they gathered in heaps under the benches. More and more and more of them. Some rolled as far as the steps. Capricorn's men came to life, bent to pick up the glittering little things bouncing off their boots, but then snatched back their hands. None of them dared touch the magic money. What else could it be? Gold made of paper and printer's ink, and the sound of a human voice? As the shower of gold stopped, at the very moment when Mo closed the book, Vicky saw there was a little sand among all the gleaming, glittering money. A few iridescent blue beetles scuttled away, and the head of an emerald-green lizard emerged from a heap of tiny coins. It stared around with fixed eyes, tongue flipping out of its sharp mouth. Vaster threw his knife at it, as if he could skewer not just the lizard, but the cowardice that had seized them all. However, Maggie gave a warning cry, and the lizard darted away so fast that the tip of the blade struck the stones. Buster ran over to his knife, picked it up, and pointed it threateningly in Maggie's direction. Capricorn rose from his chair, his face still as cold and blank as if nothing worth getting excited about had happened, and clapped his ringed hands graciously. "Not bad for a start, Silvertongue," he said. "See that, Darius? That's what gold looks like, not the rusty, dented metal you've read out of books for me. But now you've heard how the thing is done, I hope you'll have learned from it, just in case I ever require your services again." Darius did not reply. His eyes were fixed on Mo with such admiration in them that it wouldn't have surprised Maggie had he flung himself at her father's feet. When Mo straightened up, Darius approached him hesitantly. Capricorn's men were still gazing at the gold as if they didn't know what to do next. "What are you standing there for, gaping like a lot of sheep?" cried Capricorn. "Pick it up, go on." "That was wonderful," Darius whispered to Mo, while Capricorn's men cautiously began shoveling the coins into bags and boxes. His eyes were gleaming behind his glasses like the eyes of a child who has just been given a much-wanted present. "I've read that book many times," he said in a voice that shook, "but I never saw it all as vividly as I did today. I didn't just see it, I smelled it. The salt and the tar and the musty odor of the whole accursed island. Treasure Island! Heavens above, I was petrified." Eleanor appeared behind Darius, pushing him impatiently aside. Flatnose had obviously forgotten her for the moment. "He'll be here any minute, that's what I kept thinking. Long John Silver will be here, lashing out at us with his crutch." Mo just nodded, but Meggie could see the relief on his face. "Here, take it," he told Darius, handing him the book. "I hope I never have to read out of it again. One shouldn't push one's luck." "You said his name not quite right every time," Maggie whispered. Mo tenderly stroked the bridge of her nose. "So you noticed," he whispered back. "Yes, I thought that might help. Perhaps the savage old pirate won't feel we're calling to him then, I told myself, and he'll stay where he belongs. Why are you looking at me like that?" "Why do you think?" said Eleanor, answering instead of Maggie. Why is she looking so admiringly at her father? Because no one ever read aloud like that. Even apart from the money, I saw it all, the sea and the island, as clear as if I could touch it, and I don't expect it was any different from your daughter." Mo had to smile. He kicked aside a few of the coins on the floor in front of him. One of Capricorn's men picked them up and surreptitiously pocketed them. As he did so, he looked at Mo as uneasily as if he had feared a word from him might turn him into a frog, one of the beetles still crawling around among the coins. "They're afraid of you, Mo," whispered Maggie. She could see the trepidation even on Baster's face, although he was doing his best to hide it by assuming a particularly bored expression. Only Capricorn seemed to be left cold by what had happened. Arms folded, he stood there watching his men pick up the last of the coins. "How much longer is this going to take?" he asked finally. "Leave the small change where it is and sit down again. And you, Silvertongue, open the next book." "The next book?" Eleanor's voice almost cracked with indignation. "What on earth's the idea of that? The gold your men are shoveling up, there's enough to last you at least 2 lifetimes. We're going home now." She was about to turn around, but Flatnose, who had finally remembered he was meant to be guarding Eleanor, seized her arm roughly. Mo looked up at Capricorn. Baster, smiling unpleasantly, laid his hand on Maggie's shoulder. "Get on with it, Silvertongue," he said. "You heard there are still plenty of books here." Mo looked at Maggie for a long time before bending to pick up the book he had chosen first. Tales from the 1,001 Nights. "The book that goes on forever," he murmured, opening it. "Did you know the Arabs say no one can read it right through to the end, Maggie?" She shook her head as she sat down beside him on the cold flagstones. Basta let her, but he planted himself right behind her. Maggie didn't know much about the 1,001 Nights, except that it was really a book in many volumes. The copy that Darius had given Mo could only be a small selection. Were Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves in it, and Aladdin and the Wonderful Lamp? Which story would Mo read? Maggie thought she saw contradictory feelings on the faces of Capricorn's men. Fear of what Mo might bring to life, and at the same time a wish, a yearning almost to be carried away by his voice once more, transported far away to a place where they could forget everything, even themselves. There was no smell of salt and rum when Mo began reading this time. The air in Capricorn's church grew hot. Maggie's eyes began to burn, and when she rubbed them she found sand sticking to her knuckles. Once again Capricorn's men listened to Mo's voice with bated breath, as if they were turned to stone. Capricorn alone seemed to feel nothing of the magic, but his eyes showed that even he was spellbound. They were fixed on Mo's face, as unmoving as the eyes of a snake. His red suit made his pupils look even more washed out, and his body seemed tense, like a dog scenting its prey. But this time Mo disappointed him. The words offered up no riches, none of the treasure chests, pearls, and swords set with precious stones that Mo's voice conjured up, shining and sparkling. until Capricorn's men felt as if they could pluck them from the air. Something else slipped out of the pages, though, something breathing, a creature made of flesh and blood. A boy was suddenly standing between the still smouldering braziers where Capricorn had burned the books. Maggie was the only one to notice him. All the others were too absorbed in the story. Even Mo didn't see him, far away as he was. Somewhere in the sand, in the wind, as his eyes made their way through the labyrinth of letters. Well, hello, Matty. Thank you very much for the 30 bits, and thank you for the 30 bits, and thank you for the 30 bits. And thank you for the 30 bits. And thank you for the 30 bits. And thank you for 30 bits. Did I tell you I'm getting new emotes soon? And thank you for the 30 bits. Hey, the biddies are coming. We fucking love to see it. And thank you for the 30 bits. Very appreciative, Maddie. But yes, the new emotes are on the way. Thank you for the 30 bits. I'm hoping we'll have them in a week or two. But I'm not too sure yet. Thank you for the 30 bits. Can't wait for the new emotes. I'm very excited as well. Thank you for the 30 bits. Thank you for the 30 bits. Do you have an endless supply of bits is what I want to know. Like, do you just have a card linked that you just constantly exist? Like, you just press a button, it's like bits, you know? How much of this is planned? Right, he just has an infinite amount of bits. I have some bits, yeah. I notice you've got some. I could tell. Jeez. Thank you very much for the support and the bits, Maddie. It is very, very kind of you as always. We love to see it. Maybe I will get some animated emotes as well. We've got 2 on the way coming. But maybe I'll get some more. Thank you for putting up with me. This is really not a thing to put up with. Truly. You know that, right? This is not like a bad thing that I have to deal with. This is a very nice thing that you're doing, and it's really, really kind of you. It's pretty fun when this happens. It is pretty fun. You know this, right? Right? Okay. Some people are not too happy about it, lol. That feels truly insane to me. Why would someone not be happy about this? What is there to complain about? Also, Holly gets very happy when this happens. I think anyone would. I think it's odd that people would complain about it. Like, how could you complain about such kindness from a person within your community? I think it'd be horrible to complain about it. Feels a bit mean, doesn't it? I love making people happy while I do it. I am very happy. Thank you, Maddie. It is very, very kind of you to do this for people, honestly. It is lovely. We love to see it. It is wonderful, in my opinion. Very nice. I feel like I'm gonna hiccup in a second. Like, I keep feeling like I'm gonna hiccup and then it doesn't actually come out. Odd. Wait, maybe it's happening. Okay, no, it's happening. I go back to Valorcom while I lag. Okay. And good luck on your comp games, Maddie. I hope you win all of them. It is what you deserve. Have a good time. I will go back to the reading. Alrighty. Let's see where we're at. The boy was some 3 or 4 years older than Maggie. The turban round his head was dirty, his eyes dark with fear in his brown face. He blinked and rubbed them as if he could wipe it all away. The wrong picture, the wrong place. He looked round the church as if he had never seen a building before, and how could he? There wouldn't be any churches with spires in his story, or green hills like those he would see outside. The robe he wore went down to his brown feet, and in the dim light of the church it shone blue as a patch of the sky. Maggie wondered what will happen when they see him. He's certainly not what Capricorn was hoping for. But Capricorn had already noticed the boy. Stop, he commanded, so sharply that Mo broke off in mid-sentence and raised his head. Abruptly and rather unwillingly, Capricorn's men returned to reality. Cockrell was the first on his feet. Hey, where did he come from? He growled. The boy ducked, looking round with a terrified expression, and ran for it, doubling back and forth like a rabbit, but he didn't get far. 3 men immediately sprang forward and caught him at the feet of Capricorn's statue. Mo put the book down on the flagstones beside him and buried his face in his hands. Hey, Fulvio's gone, cried one of Capricorn's men. Vanished into thin air. They all stared at Mo. There it was again, the nervousness in their faces, but this time mingled not with admiration but with anger. Get rid of that boy, Silver Tongue, ordered Capricorn angrily. I have more than enough of his kind. Bring Fulvio back. Mo took his hands away from his face and stood up. For the millionth time, I can't bring anyone back, he said. The fact that you don't believe me doesn't make that a lie. I can't do it. I can't decide who or what comes out of a book, nor who goes into it. Maggie reached for Mo's hand. Some of Capricorn's men came closer, 2 of them holding the boy. They were pulling on his arms as if to tear him in half. Eyes wide with terror, the boy stared into their unfamiliar faces. Back to your places, Capricorn ordered the angry men. A couple of them were already dangerously close to Mo. Why all this fuss? Have you forgotten how stupidly Fulvio acted on the last job? We always had the police down on us, so it's the right man to have gone. And who knows, perhaps this lad will turn out to have a talent for arson. All the same, I want to see pearls now, and golds and jewels. That's what this story is all about, so let's have some. An uneasy murmuring rose among the men. Nonetheless, most of them returned to the steps and perched once more on the worn treads. Only 3 still stood in front of Mo, staring at him with intense hostility. One of them was Baxter. Very well, so we can dispense with Fulvio, he said, never taking his eyes off Mo. But who was this wretched wizard going to magic into thin air next time? I don't want to end up in some thrice accursed desert story and find myself going around in a turban all of a sudden. The men standing near him nodded in agreement and looked at Mo so darkly that Maggie almost stopped breathing. Buster, I won't tell you again. Capricorn's voice sounded menacingly calm. Hello, Sidkins. Welcome in. How's it going? Ba-ba-ba. My toilet's making weird noises, which is why I'm concerned about him. It flooding my bathroom. But so far it's doing okay. Yeah, how was your stream, Sidkins? How are you doing? I'm doing swell, thank you. We've gotten like 89 pages or so in from the last time we read this book. So I'm making good progress. I have been going for 3.5 hours. It was chill and fun. Very nice. What did you play today, if anything? It is good to hear indeed. I will keep reading while you let me know what you played. Let him go on reading, all of you. Anyone whose teeth start chattering with fear had better go outside and help the women with the laundry. I asked what you were playing, said Kins. Some of the men looked longingly at the church door, but none ventured to leave. Finally, even the 2 who had been standing beside Basta turned without a word and sat down with the others. You'll pay for Fulvio yet, Basta whispered to Mo before he stationed himself behind Maggie again. Why couldn't he have disappeared, she thought. The voice still hadn't uttered a sound. Lock him up, we'll see if he can be of any use to us later, ordered Capricorn. The boy did not resist as Flatnose led him away. Apparently numb, he stumbled along as if he was still expecting to wake up. When would he realize this dream was never going to end? When the door closed behind the two of them, Capricorn returned to his chair. Go on reading, Silver Tongue, he said. We still have a long day ahead of us. But Mo looked at the books lying at his feet and shook his head. No, he said. You saw it happen again. I'm tired. Be content with what I brought you from Treasure Island. Those coins are worth a fortune. I want to go home, and I never want to set eyes on you again. His voice sounded rougher than usual, as if he had read too many words aloud. Capricorn looked at Mo appraisingly before turning his eyes to the bags and chests his men had filled with coins. He seemed to be working out how long their contents would keep it in comfort. Played World of Warcraft? Nice. I hope you had fun. Have fun reading. I'm going to eat because I'm a bit tired. Thanks, Sidkins. Eat well. Yes, you're right, he said at last. We'll go on tomorrow, otherwise we might find a stinking camel turning up here next, or another half-starved boy. Tomorrow? Mo took a step towards him. What do you mean? Aren't you satisfied yet? One of your men has disappeared already. Do you want to be the next? I can live with the risk, replied Capricorn, unimpressed. His men leapt to their feet as he rose from his chair and walked slowly down the altar steps. They stood there like schoolboys, although some of them were taller than Capricorn, hands clasped behind their backs as if at any moment he would inspect their fingernails for cleanliness. Maggie couldn't help remembering what Baster had said, how young he himself had been when he joined Capricorn, and she wondered whether it was out of fear or admiration that the men bowed their heads. Capricorn had stopped beside one of the bulging money bags. I have a great many plans for you, Silvertongue, believe me, he said, putting his hand into the sack and running the coins through his fingers. Today was just a test. After all, I had to convince myself of your talents with my own eyes and ears, right? I can certainly use all this gold, but tomorrow you're going to read something else out of a book for me. We're taking another drinking thing. Hydration, stop, lol. He strolled over to the boxes which had contained the books that were now burnt to ashes and reached into one. Surprise, he announced, smiling as he held up a single book. It didn't look at all like the copy Maggie and Eleanor had brought him. It still had a brightly coloured paper dust jacket with a picture that Maggie couldn't make out from a distance. Oh yes, I still have one, remarked Capricorn, scanning the uncomprehended faces with pleasure. My own personal copy, you might say, and tomorrow, Silvertongue, you're going to read to me from it. As I was saying, I like this world of yours very much indeed, but there's a friend from the old days that I miss. I never let your substitute try his skill with my friend. I was afraid he might fetch him here without a head or with only one leg. But now I have you, and you're a master of your art. Mo was staring incredulously at the book in Capricorn's hand as if he expected it to dissolve into thin air at any moment. "A rest, Silvertongue," said Capricorn. "Spare your precious voice. You'll have plenty of time for that because I have to go away and I won't be back till noon tomorrow. Take these three back to their quarters," he told his men. "Give them enough to eat and some blankets for the night. Oh, yes, and get Mortola to bring him tea. That kind of thing works wonders in a hoarse, tired voice. Didn't you always swear by tea sweetened with honey, Darius?" He turned inquiringly to his old reader, who simply nodded and looked sympathetically at Mo. "Back to our quarters? Does that mean that hole where your man with the knife bit us last night?" Belle's cheeks were flushed red, whether in horror or indignation Maggie couldn't guess. "This is wrongful detention. No, worse, abduction. That's it, abduction. Are you aware of how many years in jail you'd get for it?" "Abduction," Basta savoured the word. "Sounds good to me. Really good." Capricorn gave him a smile. Then he looked Eleanor up and down as if he were seeing her for the first time. "Basta," he said, "is this lady any use to us?" Not that I know of, replied Basta, smiling like a child who has just been given permission to smash a toy. Eleanor went pale and tried to step backwards, but Cockerel barred her way and held her firmly. What do we generally do with useless things, Basta? Asked Capricorn quietly. Basta went on smiling. Stop that, Mo said angrily to Capricorn. Stop frightening her at once, or I'm not reading you another word. With every appearance of indifference, Capricorn turned his back to him, and Basta kept smiling. Maggie saw Eleanor press a hand to her trembling lips and quickly went over to stand beside her. She's not useless. She knows more about books than anyone else in the world, she said, holding Eleanor's other hand very tight. The look in his eyes made Maggie shudder, as if someone running cold fingers down her spine. His eyelashes were pale as cobwebs. Eleanor definitely knows more stories with treasure in them than that spineless read of yours, Maggie stammered. Definitely. Eleanor squeezed Maggie's fingers hard. Her own hand was damp with sweat. Yes, absolutely, that's true, she said huskily. I'm sure I could think of several more. Well, well, was all Capricorn said, his curved lips tracing a smile. We'll see. Then he gave his men a signal, and they made Eleanor, Maggie, and Mo file past the tables, past Capricorn's statue and the red columns, and out through the heavy door that groaned as they pushed it open. I'm going to play a few games with friends before sleep. Have a nice rest, everyone, and listen to the VOD when I'm going to sleep today again. Okie dokies. Have a good one. Enjoy. We are almost at 100 more pages read, so I don't think we'll go on for much longer. Outside, beyond the shadow of the church on the village square, the sun shone down from a cloudless blue sky. The air was filled with a sense of summer. It was as if nothing unusual had happened. Chapter 19. Gloomy Prospects. They did indeed get enough to eat. Around noon a woman brought them bread and olives, and towards evening there was pasta smelling of fresh rosemary. But the food couldn't cut short the endless hours, any more than full stomachs dispelled their fear of what the next day might bring. Perhaps not even a book would have done it, but there was no point thinking of that, since they had no books. Only the blank walls and the locked door. At least a new light bulb was hanging from the ceiling, so they didn't have to sit in the dark the whole time. Maggie kept looking at the crack under the door to see if night was falling yet. She imagined lizards sitting outside in the sun. She'd seen some in the square outside the church. Had the emerald green lizard that scurried out of the heaps of coins found its way outside? Or what had happened to the boy? Maggie saw his frightened expression whenever she closed her eyes. She wondered whether the same thoughts were going through Mo's head. He'd hardly said a word since they were locked up again. Had flopped down on the pile of straw and turned his face to the wall. Eleanor was no more talkative. How generous, was all she had muttered when Cockerel had bolted the door after them. Our host has graciously provided 2 more heaps of mouldy straw. And she had sat down in a corner, legs outstretched, and begun staring gloomily at her knees, then at the grubby wall. Mo, asked Maggie at last, when she could no longer stand the silence, what do you think they're doing to the boy? And what kind of friend are you supposed to read out the book for Capricorn? I don't know, Maggie, was all he replied without turning round. So she left him alone, made herself a bed of straw beside his, then paced up and down between the bare walls. Perhaps the strange boy was the other side of one of them. She put her ear to the wall. Not a sound came through. Someone had scratched a name in the plaster. Ricardo Bentone, 19596. Maggie ran her finger over the letters. A little further on there was another name, and then another. Maggie wondered what had become of them. Ricardo, Ugo, and Bernardo. Perhaps I ought to scratch my name here too, she thought, just in case. But she was careful not to think her way to the end of that sentence. Behind her, Eleanor lay down on her straw bed, sighing. When Maggie turned to her, she forced a smile. What wouldn't I give for a comb? She said, pushing the hair back from her forehead. I never have thought in a situation like this I'd miss a comb so much of all things, but I do. Heavens, I don't even have a hairpin left. I must look like a witch, or a washing-up brush that's seen better days. No, really, you look fine. Your hairpins were always falling out anyway, said Maggie. Actually, I think you look younger. Younger? Well, if you say so. Eleanor glanced down at herself. Her mouse grey sweater was filthy, and there were 3 ladders in her tights. Maggie, it was very kind of you to help me back there in the church, she said, pulling her skirt down over her knees. My knees were like jelly. I was so scared. I don't know what's come over me. I feel like someone else, as if the old Eleanor has driven home and left me here by myself. Her lips began to tremble, and Maggie thought she was going to cry. But next moment the familiar Eleanor was back again. Well, there we are, she said. It's only in an emergency that you find out what you're truly made of. Personally, I always thought if I was a wooden statue, I'd be carved out of oak, but it seems I'm more like pearwood or something else very soft. It only takes a villain like that to play with his knife in front of my nose, and the wood shavings start flaking away. And now the tears did come, hard as Eleanor tried to keep them back. Angrily, she rubbed her eyes with the back of her hand. I think you're doing splendidly, Eleanor. Mo was still lying with his face to the wall. You're both doing splendidly, and I could wring my own neck for dragging you two into all of this. Nonsense. If anyone around here needs his neck wrung, it's Capricorn, said Eleanor. And that man Bast. Oh my God, I'd never have thought the idea of strangling another human being would give me such enormous satisfaction. But I'm sure if I could just get my hands round that bastard's neck, On seeing the shock in Maggie's eyes, she fell guiltily silent, but Maggie just shrugged her shoulders. I feel the same, she murmured, and began scratching an M on the wall with the key of her bicycle lock. Weird to think she still had that key in her trouser pocket, like a souvenir of another life. Eleanor ran her finger down one of the ladders in her tights, and Mo turned on his back and stared up at the ceiling. I'm so sorry, Maggie, he said suddenly. I'm so sorry I let them take the book away from me. Maggie scratched the knee in the wall. It doesn't make any difference, she said, stepping back. The G's in her name looked like nibbled O's. You probably couldn't have read her back out of it again anyway. No, probably not, murmured Mo, and went on staring at the ceiling. It's not your fault, said Maggie. She wanted to add, the main thing is you're with me. The main thing is for Bast never to put his knife to your throat again. I mean, I hardly remember my mother, I only know her from a couple of photographs. But Maggie said none of that, for she knew it wouldn't comfort Mo. It would probably just make him sadder than ever. For the first time, Maggie had some idea of how much she missed her mother, and for one crazy moment she felt jealous. She scratched an eye in the plaster. That was an easy letter. And she lowered the key. Footsteps were approaching outside. Eleanor put her hand to her mouth when they stopped. Basta pushed open the door, and there was someone behind him. Maggie recognized the old woman she had seen in Capricorn's house. With a dour expression on her face, she pushed past Basta and put a mug and a thermos jug on the floor. As if I didn't have enough to do, she muttered before going out again. So now we have to feed up our fine guests too. They might at least be put to work if you had to keep them here. Tell that to Capricorn, was all Basta replied. Then he drew his knife, smiled at Eleanor, and wiped the blade on his jacket. It was getting dark outside, and his snow-white shirt shone in the gathering twilight. Enjoy your tea, Silvertongue, he said, relishing the discomfort on Eleanor's face. Well, Taylor's put so much honey in the jug, your mouth will probably stick up with the first sip you take, but your throat will be as good as new tomorrow. What have you done with the boy? Asked Mo. I think he's next door to you. Capricorn hasn't decided what's to become of him yet. Cockrell will try him out with a little ordeal by fire tomorrow, then we'll know if he's any use to us. Mo sat up. Ordeal by fire? He asked, his voice both bitter and mocking. Well, you can't have passed that one yourself. You're even afraid of Dustfinger's matches. Watch your tongue, Basta hissed at him. One more word and I'll cut it out, however precious it may be. Oh, no, you won't, said Mo, standing up. He took his time over filling the mug with steaming tea. Maybe not. Basta lowered his voice as if afraid of being overheard. Your little daughter has a tongue too, and hers isn't as valuable as yours. Never mind. Discord voice is down. Oh, that's not ideal. Well, unrelated. But we've got another ad break coming up, so I'll do this now. We will finish the chapter, and then I will probably scoot off to bed. Alrighty, here it comes. The voice went down 16 minutes ago. Oh, how odd. I can see that some people are in voice channels. Maybe it's just certain things that have gone down, I assume. I tried on your server, but it didn't work. Odd. Yeah, I've got no idea what's up with it. But I tend not to know what's wrong with these kind of things. They identify the problem? Nice. This is very good. I'm just fucking looking in general and seeing you convincing this poor dude in Honkai to quit his job. He's right. You should feel a twinge of guilt saying nasty stuff to him. Just saying. Just saying. He's right. Oh, okay. It looks like our ad break is successfully over. So we can finish up our reading for the day. I didn't pick the quit job option. Did you try and empathize with him then? What? I just picked the imagine a better life option. Ah. Yeah, I can imagine he would love that. 2 hiccups in one fucking day. I just gave him things he could enjoy his life with hobbies. Fair enough. Enough skill points to quit your job, huh? Says the way of things. Drinking tea. I don't think that drinking tea is going to pay bills. Unfortunately. Wish it did, but I feel like it's notoriously not useful for that. Unfortunately. Does it want to face forward? Ah, there she goes. I had enough. Just didn't want to lose because I might have took down my argument. Also, he didn't quit his job, just got abused on the side. It's fair enough. Enjoying life and having hobbies is ideal, really. Even if he still has to work. That part sucks, but cannot do much about it, unfortunately. So there's that. Anyway, we will finish the current chapter and then we will have done our 100 pages for the evening. And then I will go to bed and think about when I can schedule the next part of Inkheart. Let us rumble. Okay. Mo flung the mug of hot tea at him, but Basta closed the door so quickly that the mug smashed into the wood. Sweet dreams, he called from outside as he shut the bolts. See you in the morning. None of them said a word when he was gone. Not for a long, long time. Mo, tell me a story, Maggie whispered at last. What story do you want to hear? He asked, putting his arm round her shoulders. Tell me about the one about us being in Egypt, she whispered, and we're looking for treasure and surviving sandstorms and scorpions and all the scary ghosts rising from their tombs to watch over their precious grave goods. Oh, that story, said Mo. Didn't I make it up for your 8th birthday? It's rather a gloomy tale as far as I remember. Yes, very, said Maggie. But it has a happy ending. Everything turns out all right, and we come home laden with treasure. I wouldn't mind hearing that one myself, said Eleanor, her voice unsteady. She was probably still thinking of Bastard's Knife. So Mo began to tell his story, without the rustle of pages, without the endless labyrinth of letters. Mo, nothing came out of a story you were just telling, did it? Asked Maggie at one point, suddenly feeling anxious. No, he said. For that to happen, it seems that printer's ink is necessary and someone else needs to have made up the story. Then he continued, and Maggie and Eleanor listened until his voice had carried them far, far away. Finally, they went to sleep. I'm just attempting to look at how many pages is left in this chapter, because we could end a little bit earlier. There's 10. I think we'll end on page 203. A sound woke them all. Someone was fiddling with the lock of the door. Maggie thought she heard a muffled curse. Oh no, breathed Eleanor. She was the first on her feet. They're coming to take me away. That old woman's persuaded them. Might feed us up. You, maybe, she said, looking frantically at Mo. But why me? Go over to the wall, Eleanor, said Mo as he moved Maggie behind him. Both of you keep well back from the door. The lock sprang open with a muffled little click, and the door was pushed just far enough open for someone to squeeze through it. Dustfinger. He cast a last anxious glance outside, then pulled the door shut behind him and leaned against it. So I hear you've done it again, Silvertongue, he said, lowering his voice. I say the poor boy still hasn't uttered a word. I don't blame him. I can tell you it's a horrible feeling suddenly landing in someone else's story. What are you doing here? Snapped Eleanor, but the sight of Dustfinger had actually filled her with relief. Leave him alone, Eleanor, said Mo, moving her aside and going over to Dustfinger. How are your hands? He asked. Dustfinger shrugged. They had put cold water on them in the kitchen, but the skin's still almost as red as the flames that licked at it. Ask him what he wants, hissed Eleanor. And if he's just come to tell us he can't do anything about the mess we're in, then you might as well wring his lying neck. By way of answer, Dustfinger tossed her a bunch of keys. Why do you think I'm here? He grumbled, switching off the light. Stealing the car keys from Basta wasn't easy, and a word of thanks might not be out of place, but we can think about that later. We don't want to hang around any longer. Let's get out of here. Cautiously, he opened the door and listened. There's a sentry posted up on the church tower, he whispered, but the guards are keeping watch on the hills, not the village. The dogs are in their kennels, and even if we do have to deal with them, luckily they like me better than Basta. Why would we suddenly trust him? Whispered Eleanor to Mo. Suppose there's some other devilry behind this. I want you to take me with you. That's my only motive, snapped Dustfinger. There's nothing here for me anymore. Capricorn's let me down. He sent the only scrap of hope I still had up in smoke. He thinks he can do what he likes with me. Dustfinger's only a dog you can kick without fearing he may bite back, but he's wrong there. He burned the book, so I'm taking away the reader I brought him. As for you, he said, jabbing his burnt finger into Eleanor's chest, you can come because you have a car. No one gets out of this village on foot, not even Capricorn's men, not with the snakes that infest these hills. But I can't drive, and so... I knew it! Eleanor almost forgot to keep her voice down. He just wants to save his own skin, that's why he's helping us. He doesn't have a guilty conscience, oh no, why should he? I don't care why he's helping us, Eleanor, Mo interrupted her impatiently. We have to get away from here, that's what matters. But we're going to take someone else with us too. Someone else? Who? Dustfinger looked at him uneasily. The boy, the one I condemned yesterday to the same fate as you, replied Mo, making his way past Dustfinger and out of the door. Basta said he's next door to us, and our luck is no obstacle to your clever fingers. I burned those clever fingers today, muttered Dustfinger angrily. Still, just as you please, your soft heart will be the ruin of us yet. When Dustfinger knocked on the door bearing the number 7, a faint rustling could be heard on the other side of it. Seems like they were going to let him live, he whispered as he got to work on the lock. They put people condemned to death in the crypt under the church. Ever since I told Basta for a joke that a white lady haunts the stone coffins down there, he turns white as a sheet whenever Capricorn sends him into the crypt. He chuckled quietly at the memory, like a schoolboy who's just played a particularly good practical joke. Maggie looked across the church. Do they often condemn people to death? She asked quietly. Dustfinger shrugged. Not as often as they used to, but it does happen. Stop telling her such stories, whispered Mo. He and Eleanor never took their eyes off the church tower. The sentry was posted high up on the wall beside the belfry. It made Maggie dizzy just to look up there. Those are no stories, Silvertongue, is the truth. Don't you recognize the truth when you meet it anymore? The truth's not pretty, of course. No one likes to look it in the eyes. Dustfinger stepped back from the door and bowed. After you, I've picked the lock. You can fetch him out. Even with his burnt fingers, it hadn't taken him long. You go in, Mo whispered to Maggie. He'll be less afraid of you. And that's where we're going to end for the day, because we are pretty much at midnight, and we have achieved our 100 pages. Yay! I don't think anyone is asleep, but just in case, we will not raid out today. We will just scoot and boot very quietly so that we do not risk anyone waking up if they are sleeping. Okay, so it's been very nice having everyone here, and thank you for hanging out with me, and I hope you all enjoyed the reading and the story so far. I'll put part 1 and obviously this one, part 2, up on YouTube, as I will put all the other parts if anyone wants to listen again, or use it to sleep, up to you. Hopefully I will see you all tomorrow for Modded Stardew Valley with Alika and Vertrain. That's at 8 PM BST. Good night, everyone. Good night, Wolf. I will see y'all another time, I hope. Haha. Okie dokie. Bye.